Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight's guest is Susan Plunket. She's a psychologist from New York and author of Mission from Venus. Now, Mission from Venus is a fictional novel about dimensional beings incarnating on Earth as humans. I'm sure there's a lot more to that story than that, but a lot more to that story is that she actually does channel this information of dimensional beings, the fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional beings that are on different planets, on a higher dimension, negative beings, all that stuff. I'm familiar with people that are channeling. I've always been really interested in it, especially when they talk about our past and with other alien entities out there. So we're going to get into all of that tonight. And we got a lot of weird to cover on the World Wide Web of Weird to get to. So we want to make sure we get to that. And we will take your phone calls after the second commercial break tonight, as usual. If you have any questions for our guest, or maybe you've had your own little channeling insight into the past, but call in tonight. I'll give out those phone numbers after the second commercial break. And don't forget, I just last week, I had somebody I saw on the show feed going, why do I see chat that's not appearing in the chat? We have chat rooms on YouTube and on Facebook, and we stream on StreamYard. So I can show your chats and comments on the feed tonight. So when you see somebody else's comment, you don't see the chat room, well, they're either on the other chat room, either Facebook or YouTube. Take your pick. We're also on internet radio. You can listen to us there. No chat room for that. But join us. This is the Paranormal Soup team, the Paranormal Soup family. I love everybody in the chat room. We got a lot of great conversation. So let's go ahead and get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Susan Plunket, will join us after the World Wide Web of Weird. We got a lot to talk to her about. And joining me, as always, is my beautiful co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing well. Thank you, Jason.
Glad ready to talk about some aliens, fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional aliens.
Always.
Some people are like, yeah, right. I really, this stuff really resonates with me when I'm listening. If you hear channelers talk about the past and the different alien species, they all share very common themes and scenarios, of our past. So there's something they're channeling that's very similar. So we'll get into that tonight. From St. Augustine, Florida, joining us as well is Rob Autry, who I just removed from the channel. Look, there we go. I am off my game. There's Rob. How you doing tonight, Rob?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we got a lot of weird to get to. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight, I thought I would start the World Wide Web of Weird off with a story that I think has been very viral out of all the stories tonight. It's about this talking Elsa doll that they believe is haunted. Basically, it likes to switch between speaking English to Spanish somewhere, and they don't believe it has that setting. It's really weird, but it's not like an old doll. It's Elsa. Now everybody tonight's going to have that song stuck in their head.
Let it go.
For those listening on our internet radio channel, Paranormal Soup 24/7, we are a webcast. You can watch the show on our YouTube or Facebook channel. Please follow, please subscribe. You want updates, notifications, check us out on Facebook. Follow, subscribe, YouTube, same deal. But this first article here, let me pull up our share screen and get this little picture of the Elsa doll there. Family haunted by creepy talking Elsa doll. While it might seem difficult to find anything relating to Disney's 2013 animated blockbuster Terrifying, one family has managed to find a doll of the movie's protagonist, Elsa, that may just fit the bill. According to Amelia Madonia, the doll, which was bought for her young daughter as a Christmas present over 6 years ago, not only has a habit of talking when turned off, but also often talks in different languages despite being English-speaking version of the toy. We would move the buttons to different positions, and she sang in English. And recent, she only spoke Spanish regardless of the button position. To recap, for those who have not been following our Elsa doll saga, Matt threw it away weeks ago, and then we found it inside a wooden bench. It came back. We were weirded out and tightly wrapped it in its own garbage bag and put the garbage bag inside another garbage bag filled with other garbage. Then we put it in the bottom of our garbage bin underneath a bunch of other bags of garbage, and we wheeled it to the curb, and it was collected on garbage day. Great, right? We went out of town, forgot about it. Today, Aria said, I saw Elsa doll again in the backyard. Help us get rid of the haunted doll, she asked. In the end, she shipped the doll off to a friend, Chris Hogan, who agreed to take it off her hands. I'm extremely happy the doll is not here anymore and hope to God it stays that way, she wrote. You know, it's a modern doll. I was on an investigation a couple of years ago, and they had a bunch of stuff people had given away. It was like a church that we were doing, and there was a Shaggy doll, and they were like, we don't like this doll. It creeps us out. I'm like, oh, my kids love Shaggy, Scooby-Doo. I'm taking it. You know, I wasn't worried about it. I got no bad vibes from it, but it might be a little bit stupid of me. We lost Jamie. Hopefully she pops back in here. She might have a reboot. But yeah, you know, I mean, a modern doll could be haunted by something too. There's Jamie. So yeah, the talking Elsa doll talks to different languages. But yeah, I wonder if it was a mistake to get that Shaggy doll. We've had it for a couple of years. Nothing crazy's happened. The kids love it. You know, Scooby. I mean, if it was haunted, it'd be perfect because it's Shaggy.
I had a Yoda doll that was packed away in my closet, and like in the middle of the night, it would start talking. Damn, it didn't have batteries.
Now that a haunted Yoda doll would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it was interesting.
You're like, tell me about the Force, Yoda.
Yeah,
probably lead you to the dark side. Be a bad Yoda. All right. This is a gruesome story. This is from news4jax.com. 7 killed, 14 tortured in Panama exorcism terror rituals. Panama City. 7 people were killed in a bizarre religious ritual in a jungle community of Panama, in which indigenous residents were rounded up by about 10 lay preachers and tortured, beaten, burned, and hacked with machetes to make them repent their sins. Oh, yeah, great way to make people repent their sins, beat them to death. Police freed 14 members of the Nyagi Boogly group who had been tied up and beaten with wooden cudgels. What is cudgels? And Bibles. On Thursday, local prosecutor Raphael Bolius described the chilling scene that investigators found when they made their way through the jungle-clad hills to the remote village communities near the Caribbean coast. On Tuesday, alerted by 3 villagers who escaped and made their way to local hospitals for treatment earlier, police were prepared for something bad, but were still surprised by what they found at an improvised church at a ranch where a little-known religious sect known as the New Light of God was operating. They were performing a ritual inside the structure. In the ritual, there were people being held against their will, being mistreated. All these rites were aimed at killing them if they did not repent their sins. There was a naked person, a woman inside a building where investigators found machetes, knives, and ritual sacrifice goat. The rites have been going on since Saturday and already resulted in deaths. About a mile away from the church building, authorities found a freshly dug grave with corpses of 6 children, 1 adult. How do children repent their sins? They're children. What sins do children have? Execute these priests. Let them repent their sins and then hang them.
There you go.
Oh, it makes me angry.
How do you
The dead included 5 young children, as young as 1 year old, their pregnant mother, and a 7-year-old female neighbor. They searched this family out to hold a ritual, and they massacred them, mistreated them, killed them, practically the whole family. Apparently, the sect is relatively new to the area and had only been operating locally for about 3 months. In 3 months' time, they convinced people to let them beat and murder them. Wow. That is some scary stuff.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, drink the Kool-Aid, all right. A Kool-Aid would have been better than beaten to death or machete to death.
Yeah.
But seriously, killing children, does anybody there go, excuse me, I think I'm leaving the church. Then they got to repent their sins, right? Oh boy. We're going to be talking next one here, since we're going to be talking about, I'm sure we're going to bring up ancient Mars and what civilizations were there. I thought this was interesting. I know we get a lot of the Mars pictures and stuff and people. This one does look a little interesting to me. Statue head spotted on the surface of Mars. An anomaly hunter searching for strange and unusual objects on the surface stumbled upon an image that appears to show the head of a statue sitting in the sands of the red planet. Researcher Scott Waring made the curious find while looking at NASA images posted in the photo sharing site Gigapan earlier this week. It had been uploaded by a user named Lightworker X4 when the caption NASA picture shows statue back in 2015 seems to have largely gone unnoticed until now. Postulating that the anomaly was a carving of a head, possibly one belonging to a larger statue, Waring marveled at it at his website that the ear, nose, and eye and forehead all have great detail, noting the location of the oddity on the side of the hill. He theorized that it may have meant to depict some kind of Martian god overlooking a long distance from the top of the hill to watch over everyone. As to the significance of the finding, what appears to be the depiction of a face on Mars, anomaly hunters argue that it provides us with insight into who they were, what they looked like, and who they admired, if they're male, female, the species, and much more. I mean, there's a lot of, it could just be a stone. We've seen some other ones that are even way better than this. But you know what it reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of the Roger droids from Star Wars, the prequels.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it does kind of look like, eye and a nose, like it's laying, like facing,
What I find odd is the eye part. Like, what would have made that? I don't know. Doesn't seem natural. But I don't jump up and down a lot for the Mars stuff. There's always something. People are finding all kinds of stuff on Mars. I'm seeing some stuff though that definitely raises some eyebrows. There's that one guy that does a lot of photography work and he adds the contrast so you can see more detail. And I wonder if he do this one. But
Martians, man.
Martians. I think the possibility. Well, I think this possibility is really high that there was a civilization on Mars. I think if we went there, we'd find that. Of course, some people believe we're already there. Maybe. I don't know. All right, let's move on. This next one comes from Daily Star, and I found this kind of creepy. Hundreds of marauding monkeys force villagers to flee their homes in India. A village in India has turned into something of a ghost town after being overrun by hundreds of marauding monkeys that forced several families to flee their homes. Then suddenly animal invasion impacted the community of Nasaraparam, which has been grappling with the pernicious primates for over a decade. Although the creatures were initially small neighborhood nuisance, their population exploded in recent years, with some estimating that they are now about 400 Mackays in and around the area. Alas, the number of monkeys roaming the village has increased to have their encounters of residents. As one can imagine, these interactions are more than often rather unpleasant. Monkeys fling poo. Think about that. What began with attacks on children and senior citizens soon gave away. See, the monkeys pick on the little kids and the senior citizens. They're smart enough to know that these are the people that aren't going to be able to hurt me, right? Soon they gave away to even more aggressive antics reminiscent of the Planet of the Apes film series. We have to keep the doors and windows bolted, explained the village chief. They are smart enough to open the door, come inside, and steal cooked food. Wow. He went on to laminate that the people started getting attacked. Even when they used to return home from the shop with groceries, the monkeys would just steal the bags. Ultimately, around 20 families in the village grew up so fed up with the constant harassment from the creatures that they left their homes to live in a nearby community. So bad they moved out. Do they have guns? Or are they not allowed to kill the monkeys? I'm saying kill the monkeys. It gets that many monkeys. They're walking your home and stealing your groceries. It's time to start taking some monkeys out.
Monkeys start stealing my groceries. I'm going to be eating some on the grill.
Right? If they walked into a lion's den, the lion would kill them. I'm just saying, it's nature. They're coming into your territory. In a testament to how persuasive the problem has become, the Christian was elected to his post last year after running on a platform specifically focused on eradicating the monkeys from the village. So far, it would seem that the agenda has been relatively successful, as recent media report credited him with driving a whopping 100 monkeys from the village. The chief managed to accomplish this feat by soliciting funds from residents and then enlisting experts to relocate the creatures to a forest area. Oh, they're nice. Say shooting practice. I know it's mean. I'm gonna get awful email. If you want to email me and tell me how bad I am for talking about shooting monkeys, paranormalsoupjbland@gmail.com. Shoot away.
Get your stinking filthy.
No, but yeah, I should have that sound clip ready, right? But seriously, if the monkeys are that bad, I'm just saying population control. Because if they ship them off somewhere else, they're gonna be somebody else's problem, right? I don't know. All right. Speaking of that, if you had monkeys, they're smart enough to know to pick on the senior citizen and kids, but eventually they just go into the village. Why? Because they're not shooting them. But the Bigfoot, they know not to mess with man. Obviously, they've been hiding because they're smart enough to know that probably to expose themselves to us would be a bad idea. This next one, this video has been pretty viral. And it's been out for a few weeks, I believe. It's from Australia. An Australian man films a Yowie. I got this from Coast to Coast AM. Curious piece of footage from Australia reportedly shows some kind of creature lurking in the forest, and some viewers suspect that it might be the Bigfoot of Down Under, known as Yowie. The intriguing scene, which can be seen, was recorded by Mark Demetrio while he was panning for gold in the country's Imbil State Forest. As he was tapping out a bucket to clean it, suddenly a large log came flying towards him from the nearby woods. Following that, a weird moment, Dermonti said in a post on Facebook, I had a feeling I was being watched as the bush went silent for a few minutes. When he looked towards the area where the tossed log had originated, he recalled, there was something large and black looking back at him. Dermonti subsequently pulled out his cell phone and filmed the oddity. At one point, he says to the mysterious creature, I can see you looking at me. Come on, you can come out. Ultimately, the video, the dude threw a log at you. I don't know if you want to ask it to come out. Ultimately, the video concludes with Dermonti letting out an uneasy sigh and musing, man, this is some crazy stuff. According to the shaken witness, he left the area shortly after the strange sighting because he felt very uneasy about the whole experience. Demetrio indicated that he hoped to return to the area sometime this week to see if he could find any footprints in the mud where he believes the creature was standing. While his account is rather compelling, unfortunately appears that the Yowie is as camera shy as American's counterpart. As you'll see in this, it's hard to make out anything. I took the video and I put it through a filter that kind of brings out the darkness in the background of the figure that he's talking about. So you'll see that. So go ahead and let's pull it up as much of a full screen as you can get it, because it is hard to see.
See you looking at me. I am the monkey god. I will send my children to steal your food.
It's like right through those trees. It's like a dark figure back there, and it's hard to see. Now, when the filter comes up on it, you'll see it maybe a little better, maybe. It's right past that tree. And I know, of course, blurry image. I don't blame the dude for not going up there and trying to find out or get better footage. I don't blame anybody for not doing that. I mean, I wouldn't. I might. I don't know. I'm crazy about that stuff, but
If that thing lunged out behind the tree and came running at you, man. Yeah.
he threw a log at him, which to me is like a warning, like you need to leave. And you've heard stories about Bigfoot, Yahweh throwing rocks at people and that. It's like clearly telling people, get out of you're in my area. Probably where it likes to go take a poop. Man, this is where I poop, and now some humans here.
Yeah.
Gold mine. I'll give you some gold. So you can. I zoomed in on this one, so you could kind of see something is moving back there. It's a little dark. Like you almost see like side of head now. There'll be a filter should come up here. Here we go. So I put this filter and it makes everything really yellow, I know, but it brings out the thing in the background. You can see it move. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Right there, you almost see like the side of its head. I don't know. I mean, it's. I believe this guy's account. I don't think there's any shenanigans here. It's when they're really clear and the Bigfoot comes walking out and strutting around that you kind of go, yeah, no. Yeah. The ones that probably are real are this kind where the guy's like shooting it through the trees because there's no way he's going to get any closer to this. All right, we got to move on though. I don't want to get caught into this one. Number 6. Let's move on to this one. As we don't learn anything from sci-fi, this next article, Unexplained Mysteries. Scientists reveal first living robots. Remarkable achievements come courtesy of robotics in the United States who use the skin and heart cells of an African clawed frog. It's always frogs when it's come to DNA and stuff they want to do. The African clawed frogs to produce robots capable of moving around all on their own. They're entirely new life forms, said Michael Levin from the Alien Discovery Center at Tufts University in Medford, Massachusetts. They are living programmable organisms. That sounds like such a great idea. Measuring less than 1 millimeter in length, these tiny robots are based on designs produced by supercomputers. So we didn't even invent it. We got AI to do it. We got Skynet to build this. That's such a great idea. Produced by supercomputers, which turned out tested hundreds of possible 3D configurations. The aim is to understand the software of life. If you think about birth defects, cancer, age-related diseases, all these things could be solved if we knew how to make biological structures to have ultimate control over the growth and form. While the potential scientific and medical benefits of the research are clear, some scientists have raised questions, right, about the ethics of working with what are essentially a new life form. At what point would they become beings with interests that ought to be protected, said Thomas Douglas from Oxford Center of Particle Ethics, Practical Ethics, not particle, sorry. I think they acquire more significance only if they include neural tissue that enables some kind of mental life, such as ability to experience pain. Well, not long ago, we had articles on talking about making little mini brains. So, I mean, they're obviously doing that. But it's like we don't learn anything from our sci-fi movies.
Exactly.
We don't learn anything. Like, I don't think it's a good idea to make a new life form. I'm just saying. I mean, there's a little mad scientist in me. I always say that it's like interested, like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. But there's the other part of me that's like, yeah, we're going to bring Armageddon on. We're going to bring on the zombie apocalypse or something. I don't know.
What are we doing today? We're playing God.
Yeah, just playing God, making a new life form out of frogs, something. It's always frogs. Remember Jurassic Park? They always had they had to mix it with some frog DNA. Why is the frog? Their DNA must have something special in it, man. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I just don't know if this is a good idea. I mean, you could imagine what they could do is they make a life form that reproduces itself. That's when you're really in trouble.
Yeah.
Especially in the, it starts to reproduce and evolve and do its own thing. And then we're really in trouble.
Yeah. I mean,
we're messing with programming we never even invented.
Yeah.
I
mean, everybody's always worried about like invasive species, like here we got the Cuban frogs and they're like, oh, it's a big deal. But yet let's make a new life form that could just take over the world.
Yeah. I mean, either with robotics and AI, that's what you can consider that a new life form. And they're letting AI mess with DNA because it's so complicated that we can't figure it out. A supercomputer has to do it. And like, let's throw this piece together and this piece and see what happens. Yeah. Sounded like a good idea at the time. All right, let's move on.
Let's try to open a black hole while we're at it.
This last article I thought was really interesting is the concept. I really, it just feels like something I believe in. Could consciousness pervade the universe? This one Unexplained Mysteries as well. The question exactly what is consciousness has puzzled philosophers and scientists alike for millennia. We, as in the human race, are conscious, meaning that one day basis, we perceive a great deal about the world around us. We feel both physically and emotionally and can not only ask big questions about our own existence, but also about the nature of existence itself. But what exactly is consciousness? Is it something that our brain produces, or can it exist outside of complex, highly evolved life forms? Could consciousness be inherent to all matter? Philosopher Philip Goff, author of Galileo's Error, Foundation of New Science of Consciousness, subscribes to a panpsychism. I think that's how you say it, panpsychism. The idea that consciousness is not exclusive to the human mind, but is in fact a fundamental feature of the universe that parades throughout the cosmos. That doesn't mean that literally everything has consciousness, he told Scientific America. The basic commitment is that the fundamental constituents of reality, perhaps electrons and quarks, have incredibly simple forms of experience, and the very complex experience of humans and animal brains is somehow derived from the experience of the brain's most basic parts. Human beings have a very rich and complex experiences. Horses less so, mice less so. Again, as we move to the simpler and simpler forms of life, we find simpler and simpler forms of experience. And that's what I love about this article. In this context, experience is a reference to perceiving the world either through pleasure or pain, or through seeing, hearing, smelling, or touching. Perhaps at some point the light switches off and consciousness disappears. But at least coherent to suppose that this continuum of consciousness fading while never quite turning off cameras on into a inorganic matter, with fundamental particles having almost unimaginably simple forms of experience to reflect their incredibly simple nature. Maybe we are the particles. I don't know. he's a scientist, so I the take I get that he's like, he doesn't think about what is conscious after death. He's thinking consciousness pervades all life and in the simplest forms, down to the particles. But I think consciousness I think inanimate. Look, we had the Elsa doll. That it's haunted, and it's not a living creature, but it's got something going on. It's talking in Spanish when it's supposed to be in English. Is that consciousness when an object's haunted? I don't know. It reminds me of the Poltergeist, the movie Poltergeist, and the Native American man on there believed his car was a living being. He prayed for the car. Right. I don't know if that works, but I sometimes feel like my car is a living being. It's warning me it's gonna break down any day. But that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight's guest is Susan Plunket. I hope I get her name right. She is the author of Mission from Venus. She is a channeler of dimensional beings, aliens. I don't know. We'll ask her what her take is on that. Aliens, dimensional beings, or a little both. I don't know. And we will open up the phone lines after the second commercial break. Call in with your questions tonight, or your own experiences. Let us know. But that's it. We are going to go to our commercial break. Don't forget, follow, subscribe on YouTube and Facebook. We also have a Patreon. I had somebody donate last show. $2 a month that help pays the bills. We had 1 year on Patreon, and I have just enough subscribers that paid a lot of the bills for this, the StreamYard, for the network. All that helps big time. So thank you. And the best thing you can do to help the show is sharing the show. And I see so many of you guys sharing the show out there. Thank you so much. It means a lot. All right, guys, we'll be back after a short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Bring life to the dead. 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 Enter the occult world of necromancy. You were brought here for one purpose: necromancy.
A ceremony dating back to the pre-Christian era. It's the art of reviving the dead. It requires involvement with evil spirits by the person performing the act.
The devil god brings life to the dead.
No, please. No, please.
And death to the living. Necromancy, starring Orson Welles and Pamela Franklin. From Cinerama releasing. In color, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening, Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted, Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted, Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe. 555.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Susan Plunket. Susan Plunket is a writer and a psychologist in a private practice in New York City. She received her doctorate at the New York School of Social Research in 1989. Her first book, With Every Breath Becomes a Prayer, reflects her interest in Jungian dream analysis and people who have had an experience of the numbness as a result of emotional pain. Her life is informed by the belief that it is our attitude towards our suffering which determines our growth. Her new book, Mission from Venus, pushes further into the fantasy worlds of the 5th and 6th dimensions where ETs are preparing on Venus to incarnate on Earth to help awaken humans to their powers and prevent the Dark Lords of Orion from harvesting Earth for the dark side. I love that, the dark side. She lives with her family in Greenwich Village. Unfortunately, she's still in the 3rd dimension, and so are we. It's something I've always been interested in, is these ideas of different dimensions. You know, I'm a big fan of the idea of the multiverse and different dimensions, but there's the idea of these dimensions exist just outside our realm, where we can live on higher or lower planes. I mean, is that what we've been dealing with when we have like our ghost box shows? You know, what's coming through is that the lower astral planes we hear. We're getting all that tonight, and we will have the phone lines open after the commercial break, a second commercial break, where you can call in. But let's go ahead and get to our guest. Are you there with me, Susan?
I'm right here.
Thank you for joining us tonight. And I gave a little bit of an introduction of you. But I wanted you to tell the audience kind of, first off, you know, how you're a psychologist. How did you get involved in channeling, learning about, you know, or being involved with dimensional aliens? You know, how did this all happen to you? How did you get involved in this?
Well, it's kind of been happening for a lot of years. First, it happened to me as a psychologist. I remember asking about 30 years ago, when I was a brand new psychologist just out of graduate school, I myself was then seeing a channel, and
this woman was channeling an extraterrestrial being. And one time I asked if he'd ever been a human, this being that was being channeled. And he said, no, he'd never been a human. But I wasn't really quite sure what he or she was at that time. I later found out, 20 years later. But I asked the being who was speaking through her how I could best help the clients, the patients that came to see me. And he said, well, really, there's very little you can do. But if you let us work through you, we can be a great help. And it frightened me, the idea of seeing patients, but having someone else kind of take over. So I think I, at that time, blocked the channel. Although from time to time, my big and most favorite thing to do, aside from couple therapy, is dream interpretation. And sometimes when I was working with a patient with a dream, I would suddenly just know something, like it just dropped in, like dropped from heaven. And I would say that, and it would be helpful. So I realized that even though I think I may have been trying not to be wide open 30 years ago, I was still getting information, and the information was helpful. Now, when I work with patients, it's much easier for me to listen in or open myself up in case there's something that I don't know that my guides or some other beings can tell me. And it may just be my guides when I'm working in therapy, but when I'm writing, it is not, I don't think it is just my guides. In fact, they recently told me that my next life will be in a different galaxy. They've also told me that of the 7.7 billion people living on Earth now, about 3 billion are from different galaxies who came to Earth to have a third dimensional experience here. So it's not like we've all had all of our lifetimes on this planet. Many of us have been in many galaxies, many different galaxies.
You know, I joke about it on the show, but I always say that I've always felt like I was an alien. Like,
well, you probably are.
From I felt that way ever since I was a kid. Like just humans and stupid humans. You know, I don't know. I just look around life. I don't think I'm better than anybody. Now, I can be pretty stupid human myself, but sometimes I just feel kind of alien to this world. What goes on around me?
You're probably not just an alien, but you may be a wanderer. And by wanderer, I mean this is what the book Mission from Venus is kind of about. And some beings who are residing in higher dimensions, who have evolved up through the first, second, third, fourth, are up in maybe the fifth or sixth dimensions, voluntarily come to Earth, incarnate as human, relinquish their higher dimensional powers, which could be astral travel, mental telepathy, and live as a human, try to remember that they've come from a higher dimension and that they've come to help. They've come to help Earth move into the fourth dimension.
Is this kind of like that? You hear people talk about like star children and indigo children and stuff like that. Is that kind of similar in concept?
It's kind of similar. I think because Earth now is transitioning from the third dimension into the fourth dimension, many people around our galaxy from the Milky Way, especially on the spiral arm, where we are out on the tip of the Sagittarius spiral arm of the Milky Way, are watching. You know, many eyes are turned to Earth to see, like, what's going to happen? Is Earth going to go into the fourth dimension on the path of light, or is Earth going to go into the fourth dimension on the dark path?
Well, you know, we're out here in the boondocks of space, pretty much. I mean, as a planet, you know,
we're out on the edge.
We're out on the edge. So, I mean, is there like a federation of planets, kind of like Star Trek kind of in a way, like have like this non-interference pact?
Yes, there is a local federation for our part of the spiral arm of the Milky Way, and it's run by a council of 9, and their headquarters is in Saturn's rings, and they meet there to mediate things not only in our, around our sun and our planets and our solar system, but for, apparently for about 500 solar systems in this area. For example, when Maldek, which was a planet between Jupiter and Mars,
I've heard this before.
When they blew themselves up in a nuclear war. Now we just have an asteroid belt there, but those souls, all the souls that had lived on Maldek, were in a tight knot for around what we would consider 200,000 Earth years. They weren't even, you couldn't even reach them.
Well, so I've heard this. I read this in a book years ago, and it really fascinated. Really, to be honest, not knowing anything about any of the stuff when I read this book, it was another channeler. I was trying to find the book before the show, and I couldn't. But it was very similar to this because I listened to an interview you did months ago, and you talked about Maldek, and I'm like, I read this in a book, and it was like, like first there was Maldek, then there was Mars. I remember right, something like that. Like we first were on Maldek, that blew up, and then we screwed up Mars, and then we ended up on Earth. If I remember the premise,
right?
Pretty much.
Both of the souls, 75,000 years ago, 500,000 years ago, Maldek blew itself up. 75,000 years ago, Mars became uninhabitable because they were setting off nuclear bombs, and their planet survived. It wasn't blown apart like Maldek. Right. But all of the inhabitants died and were brought to Earth. But they were thought to be too warlike. So the Council of 9 altered them in their light bodies. They were brought here in their light bodies. And the Council of 9 altered them and then decided that that was really against the laws for people incarnating on Earth.
Now for you, you get an echo.
Oh, sorry. I just unplugged my headphones. Wait. Let me put them back in.
Yeah.
They were a little muffled.
Oh.
Is that better?
Test. Okay, I'm not hearing myself. That is better.
Okay, good.
So this information, like I said, I read something very similar to this. I remember the planet was that name. For you, did all this information come to you through channeling?
Came to me through channeling.
See, somebody else channeled this information as well. Very similar.
Yeah, I never read this before.
Right.
But people have subsequently told me that they have heard of Maldek.
Yes.
And even Gavin Davies asked me if I thought that Bigfoot were the people from Maldek. Because when the citizens were able to be reached and were brought here, they weren't allowed to incarnate as a human because they had to pay karma back for destroying a planet, their planet.
That's got to be some bad karma.
Yeah, so they were given bodies that were kind of like ape-like.
Well, last week, sometimes my shows, I don't plan this out, people, but sometimes my shows go one into the other. Last week we had a guest on, Ronald Meyer, who has done a documentary about the connection between Bigfoot and aliens and Bigfoot's supernatural abilities. I mean, like to basically seeing them disappear or turn into balls of light or shapeshifters. So you wonder that, they're here because they're letting them, have an experience here, but they're not allowed to interact with us.
Exactly, until they were living inside the Earth. And
I've heard that too.
I haven't received much information about Bigfoot. It doesn't come up when I'm writing, but I just happen to wonder that myself, if they were actually from Maldek. And now, because they've they were evolving for 300,000 years on Earth, that most of them or many of them have evolved out of the third dimension and can incarnate now on fourth dimensional planets. So there shouldn't be too many left.
Well, another thing you bring up, and I got putting up a comment from the chat room here, Council of Nine. I've heard that before from Linda in the chat room. Yes, you've heard this before. If you watch Ancient Aliens, they bring up the Council of Nine a lot. It's also,
really?
they bring up points. Ancient Aliens get stuff wrong. I don't email Paranormal Soup jbland at gmail.com and tell me how much Ancient Aliens gets wrong. I know, but I still like the show. And one of the shows is The Nine, I think it's called, or something like that. And they talk about that, about a group. And I think this is something they kind of construe or get a little wrong, but I'm a Star Trek fan. And supposedly the Ancient Aliens kind of makes a connection that Gene Roddenberry involved with a group of people who channeled, and they channeled the Council of Nine. And they believe, the theory is that Gene Roddenberry came up, but the Federation and everything, and all that from his influence from this channeling. I've seen some people dispute that, and they're probably right. Ancient Aliens likes to construe things to their own agenda, but there is some truth to that. He definitely was involved with some people that were involved in channeling, and they channeled the Council of Nine. And then you can think back to how many different religions have 9 gods. Egyptians, Sumerians, they all have 9 gods. There's something significant to it.
Yeah, and 9 is probably the number probably has certain properties that for why it's used. I don't channel the Council of Nine myself, but in fact, it's very hard for me to actually know who I am channeling, because I can feel the ideas coming, and sometimes I seek out other channels to find out like who's talking to me.
Right, because if you're literally, you're hearing a voice in your head? Is that kind of how it works?
I'm seeing pictures.
You're seeing pictures.
I'm seeing pictures, and then I start to write it down, and the pictures come out in words. And I've wondered, like, at first I thought, am I just channeling my own guides? But I've seen for about a decade a very wonderful shaman who's the daughter of an Australian Aborigine. And she told me that the people that I'm channeling are not even in our galaxy, but I was with them before I came to Earth, and I will be with them again when I die.
So you're one of these wanderers?
I don't know. She didn't say that. I mean, she doesn't talk in terms of wanderers, but I don't know if I'm a wanderer. I just came to Earth for my own third dimensional experience, because this is the third dimensional planet. And in the third dimension, we have the task of learning about love. And so everybody that gets to the third dimension has to find a planet which is third dimensional. That's why the beings from Maldek and Mars were brought here, because Maldek and Mars were high third dimensional, so that they could fit here.
Were they better? Were they more peaceful planets at the start? I mean, were they different than us, or were their civilizations very similar to ours?
I think they were similar, but the Martians were more, well, obviously they were more warlike, because we haven't destroyed ourselves, and they did.
Through a nuclear war?
Yeah, Maldek was apparently blown up in a nuclear war, and it was so bad that the whole planet was disintegrated. Mars just destroyed their atmosphere. So they probably were more warlike than we are. But we're made of so many different things. I mean, if we have 3 billion of our 7.7 billion inhabitants from other galaxies, then we have the people that were brought, the beings that were brought from Mars and Maldek, and then we have beings who just evolved on this planet from the start, from rocks and crystals to trees and animals, and finally to humans.
So is that what, like they start out in the first dimension, kind of,
like crystals are first dimensional beings. Crystals and rocks are first dimensional. Trees are second dimensional. Animals are second dimensional, and humans are third dimensional.
We've had a couple guests on here that gave the same concept that that life takes the consciousness and the soul, or whatever takes, a million years to develop through these levels of mineral to creature evolution, like an evolution of consciousness.
Right. I mean, that's how we develop the beings who developed from here. I don't know how they develop on other planets, because not everyone is a bipedal with, 10 digits on each appendage and a head and eyes and nose and mouth and ears. They have, I imagine, like, it looks like Star Trek, the bar scene in Star Wars.
The cantinas. Now you're going to get the cantina song stuck in my head. Do, 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 do,
Yeah,
do.
I mean,
it's going to be stuck in everybody's head tonight. Thank you.
Sorry about that,
No, no.
guys, but just picture them all. I mean, looking all kinds of different beings. They don't all look like us, but when you come here, you look like us.
Well, what is the Council of Nine, though? I mean, like, what kind of beings are those? I mean, it sounds godlike, or, I mean, what are they?
I picture them as violet ovals of light. Well, I think that's because I had an experience myself I wanted to cross over. My sister died a few years ago, and she was young. She died of cancer. And I really wanted to talk to her after she died.
Right.
And I sought out this psychologist who did life between life regression.
Yeah.
Which you've probably heard of, where instead of going to your past life, you go to your last death, and then you go over to where you were after you last died. And when I got over there, I mean, I was laying on a chaise, on a kind of a couch-like thing, so my flesh and didn't go, just my light aspect went. Everybody was an oval. I knew who they were, but nobody had a body like we have. They were ovals.
They were light.
Light. And there was no talking, but I knew everything they were saying to me through mental telepathy. And it was an incredibly wonderful experience, except that the psychologist who was sitting next to me trying to tape this kept asking me questions like, what are you seeing? What do you look like? What is happening? And I was so annoyed. I just wanted to be there. But of course I had to, in order to preserve it and to be on the tape, I had to answer the questions. But I would go from the mental telepathy over there to trying to find words to get on the tape. And it was just such an amazing experience. So I think that's why I imagine the Council of Nine as ovals of light, like tall. And I imagine them for some reason as violet. When I went over and this psychologist said to me, look down and tell me what you look like. And I looked like a blue oval of light, but I could see other beings were different colors of ovals. And when he said, what's your name? I said, Sonam. I'd never heard that word before, and I don't know where it came from, but I knew when I was over there that was kind of my eternal name. And I used her as one of the characters in Mission from Venus.
Now, Mission from Venus, being fictional, but you when you started this book, was the whole plan of it just to be fictional, or did it turn into like a channel, or how did that work out?
I was told to write a trilogy, and so I knew that it was going to be, and was told to use the form of a story, but to tell true information, to tell the truth of what goes on, so that people could have hope instead of be frightened or feel hopeless or feel that life was unfair or because there's a lot of suffering in the third dimension. It's almost as if the third dimension is the most painful of all the dimensions, the one we're in right now, because it's the one dimension where we can't see ourselves in other dimensions. And we don't realize that there's so much more to life, to life everlasting, than just our experience in this lifetime, in this dimension.
We definitely have suffering and true evil on this planet. I mean, I was talking about the World Wide Web of Weird about a religious cult murdering children, you know, in a ritual, you know, that repent their sins. I'm like, what sin can a child have? You know,
right.
You know, we as humans, you know, I saw one comment, and I think another one from Linda, is that humans are designed to kill each other. We do find inventive ways to kill each other, and we're getting more and more better at it, you know.
Right. And we're afraid of each other. We're very often afraid of each other. But it doesn't have to be that way. If we can feel more hopeful, if we can feel that things are less, you know, there are many people that, and even when you look at it, it seems like many people have a very unfair life. Like, why did their child die? You know, why did they get MS or ALS or, you know, all these things. But what I have come to understand about it is that before we incarnate, we make decisions. We can, in between lives, we understand that this life is about becoming enlightened, learning more about how it's all working and fitting together. And so we say, okay, what helps us to grow? What helps us to wake up? What's the catalyst? And fortunately or unfortunately, suffering is a huge catalyst. I mean, maybe you can see it in your own life, but I know when I've suffered, it has caused me to grow more than anything else. It has caused me to question and to grow and to realize that I had agreed to that suffering and taken that lesson so that I could wake up in the third dimension and understand that I was supposed to learn about love here. And I was supposed to write this trilogy and bring hope to people so that they can understand the long game, that we're all headed back to source. And there will be no more dark side after the sixth dimension. The dark side exists and evil exists so that we can know the light, so that we have a free choice. Because if you don't have evil, then there's nothing to choose from. You know, if you can't choose to be good or evil, then there's no challenge.
There's a old guest of Art Bell's that used to have on a witch, and I'm totally Evelyn Paglini, and she used to say the saying that I just like loved because it's so true. It's like, it's easy to be good when you don't have the tools to be bad.
Yeah.
When you're, you know, and she's talking about the power of magic, you know, and ritual. Yes. But I always love that saying because it's the truth. You can seem easygoing and good and have a pampered life. Yeah, sure. You know, you have nothing affecting you, stressing you out. Sure. You can be all chill and everything's zen. But then if somebody throws you some suffering, you might not be all zen, you know?
Exactly. And that's, you know, where the rubber meets the road, where we get to grow. We need the dark side. We need evil so that we can choose to do the right thing.
But that's a hard concept for people, even for me. When you look into the eyes of evil, when you see what evil's results are, you know, when somebody loses a child to somebody who's, you know, to a human that murdered that child, you know, it just evil. It's hard to accept that that's got to be a part of the balance of life, you know. Like, why does it have to be that way?
I know. Or that maybe that child, before they incarnated, chose that so that their parents could grow through that loss.
As a parent, it's my worst nightmare.
It's my worst nightmare too. It's my worst nightmare too. I think it's every parent's worst nightmare.
Yeah. I'd rather die. I'd rather have anything else happen to me than that.
I'm with you there, and I bet most parents are.
Yeah, I don't want to learn
But-
whatever lessons involved in that. I hope I've already learned that in a past life. That just frightens the heck out of me. That try telling that to a grieving parent. That this is part of your life.
Oh,
They're
I
not going to hear
know.
you. They're not going to hear you, and justifiably so.
I know. You know what I've noticed in my practice, because I've of course had patients who lost a child, and it's like two groups. One group never, ever, ever gets over it, ever. They can never. They become bitter and hardened, and the other group mourns and is heartbroken, but they move on. And I mean, I don't know that I could move on myself, but
It's because if you let go of the pain, you feel you're letting go of them.
I guess that's part of what it is. But some people then go on and have a life of service, or if they have other children, it's helpful.
Yeah. You still have, if you have another child, you're responsible still for them. You have to pick yourself up. But I'll never, one of my childhood memories is I lost a childhood friend in a car wreck. She was 5, and it just haunts me to this day. It haunts me to this day. I just remember a couple years later, before I moved, their parents left her bike out in front where she'd left it before she died. They never touched it. And I heard her room was never touched.
Oh my God.
And that stuck with me as a kid. I was a morbid little child. And I actually saw, at one point, one of my childhood ghost experiences was seeing her inside a fort I built.
Wow.
And it scared the hell out of me, because I knew she was dead. So I learned about death young, and the effects on people from that experience.
To visit you.
Mhm.
Wow.
And it taught me a lot at a very young age, about death and the ramifications of what it does to everybody else that's left behind. And I don't know, it's kind of haunted me.
Yeah. Do you think that's why you got into the paranormal? Because of
I've seen stuff since I was a kid. I always talk, people that watch the show regularly know a lot of my stories of my experiences. I was around that same age. I saw a green floating head with my cousin, who's a month younger than me. I heard it wailing and screaming at me, chased us out of a room. I used to talk to my unborn sister. My mom miscarried before she had me, and I used to talk to this little girl. And my mom went to the psychic. My mom, the psychic goes, "Your little girl your son's talking to is your miscarried daughter." Just that kind of stuff. I've had weird experiences all my life. So that's why I'm open to it. That's why I do this show, is to give people an open forum to talk about this stuff. Because when you can't talk to people regularly about this stuff.
No, they get too scared.
For you as a psychologist, how hard is it in your field? To be open about this and talk about it.
There are people that really want to talk about it, and then there are people that don't go there at all.
Mm-hmm.
But as a psychologist, I take my lead. Like, if they come in for a Band-Aid, then I give them a Band-Aid. If they come in for an overhaul, then we do an overhaul. So if they're spiritual, then I can talk about all this stuff, and they want to talk about it. And they sometimes come to me because they've heard that I'm open to this, and that they can share some experience they had that frightened them or troubled them, or some ongoing experience they're having.
Well, I know one of my paranormal experiences I had when I was like 17 to 18 was a shadow person experience that drove me to my brink. Like, you want to talk about evil entities. I had a shadow person experience that some people call demonic. I don't know. This thing attacked me for 4 months every night, drove me to my brink. And at one point, my mom found me broken down, just crying my eyes out, and wanted me to go to a psychologist. And I did, but I couldn't tell him. I'm seeing a shadow person or talk about any of that. So I related it to my girlfriend breaking up with me, but I couldn't tell him about what I was going through. Who do you talk to about these extraordinary experiences?
I know, you have to have the right psychologist. So how did you get rid of the shadow person?
Divine intervention is what I call it. Because one night I was being, the night it attacked me, physically attacked me. Like, it would attack me in my dreams, mentally attack me. But one night it physically attacked me. The last night I ever had a real major experience with it. It levitated me up off my bed 3 times, threw me down. And the third time it picked me up, levitated me. I said, God, please help me. God, please. I'm not a religious person. I am not a Christian, but I gave it all to God. And there was a bright flashlight. I saw it screech up and then disappear. And right in the middle of that bright flashlight stepped out a elderly man with glasses. And he looked like he had suspenders on, I think. And he looked very much like a great-grandfather of mine. I saw in a picture later. So I'm wondering if I had some divine intervention. That's all I can say, that happened with it.
You must have, because normally that would have taken an exorcism to get rid of that kind of a thing.
Well, I don't, people, like I said, a lot of times related to being demonic. It felt alien to me.
Wow.
I don't know. Me and 2 other people experienced all this around the same time. We went out to a place we probably shouldn't have gone. And I think we brought this thing into our lives by invitation.
Yeah. Oof.
So you doing this, knowing about other stuff, there's a dark side. I like this too, because you talk about light side and dark side. I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt right now. I know you can't see me, or the audience really can't see me because I got your picture up. But I'm a big Star Wars fan. I say I'm not religious.
Too. Oh, me too.
People say I'm not a religious. I tell people I'm not a religious person, but I'll say my religion's Jediism, because it really resonates with me. It always has. The Force,
it resonates with me too. The Force is with you. You have to believe that. I mean, Star Wars was channeled. He sat in his garage and he channeled those movies.
I've heard George Lucas mention this.
Yeah,
it wasn't a deep fake video, people. I don't know. There's these deep fakes of George Lucas that are hilarious, but I've heard him say it in an actual interview. He felt like he was channeling these characters,
because it's the truth of what goes on,
and that's why he put it a long time ago in a galaxy far away, because he felt that
so people would take it. But it's actually what's going on. There is a battle between the light side and the dark side, and that battle goes on from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, up into the 6th dimension. After the 6th dimension, there's no way forward back to source except on the path of light. So all the evil, all the dark side, they have to make the jump over to the light side. But that's already 6th dimension is like not even very conceivable to me.
Well, let me ask you this. Something I've tried to understand about people, that believe in the 4th and the 5th and 6th dimension. It seems there's a dark 5th dimension. There's a dark 6th dimension. Like there's a lower level of those dimensions too. That's something I've had trouble understanding how that works.
My understanding is that in every dimension, you can be traveling the path of light or the path of dark up until the 6th, high 6th. And then at that point, you cannot go forward. You have to jump onto the path of light. But yes, there are higher dimensional beings in the 5th and 6th dimension that are dark. And by dark, I mean they serve only themselves. The path of light is we're all in service to one another. We're all in it together. And what you do for someone else, you also do for you. Just as what you do for yourself is done for someone else, because we're all connected. And that's the belief of the light side. The dark path wants to enslave, control, and it will do, the ultimate control is to take someone's life. But before taking the life, they want to enslave and control beings. And that goes on even in the higher dimensions.
Well, I say it's happening in society. I tell people, keep your eye on China, because what they're doing there is horrific. I don't know if
the Muslim Uyghurs are being put in camps.
Christians. There's re-education camps for Christians there.
There's re-education camps for everyone that they don't like.
Anything that is a threat to communism in China and their government.
Right.
They have a social credit system now. That's like right out of a Black Mirror episode. Have you ever seen a Black Mirror that literally docks people? Like somebody can report you for not taking your trash out and you're docked and your level gets too low. You can't get access to anything. Heck, they might take you off the street and throw you in re-education camp.
Right. And they brainwash you and torture you in those camps. And you're encouraged to report on your neighbors and report on one another.
That's the dark
horrific.
side to me. That's the empire. Like, dun, dun, dun. That's what I hear when I think of China. And,
That is definitely dark. Controlling other people is the dark side.
Oh yeah, but what scares me is the ignorance in our country to it, and in the media just doesn't
even report it.
How much of our media companies are owned by China.
Yep.
See that's what people were we have threats of our own freedom here in this country happening. Well, dear God, let's never end up like China. But the problem is we have big corporations like Apple. I love Ricky Gervais calling out Apple and their sweatshops in China, because Apple is helping them, and Google is helping China set up this whole social credit system. They're making big money off of it.
Ricky Gervais is hysterically funny.
But I love them calling him out, and then the camera shows the CEO of Apple. I'm like, hell yes, because we cannot be acceptance of this evil. It is evil.
I know. And most people don't know about it. If you don't listen to podcasts, you can't find this stuff from the regular media.
Exactly.
You don't know that they have these concentration camps, these re-education camps over there, which is total dark side.
Yeah.
Anytime you're controlling another person, it's the work of the dark side, because we're meant to have free will. We're not meant to be controlled.
And it's one step at a time is what I always warn people, for China, it's all full blown out there Orwellian society, but there was a time when it wasn't. It's one step towards it.
Yeah.
Happening here all the time. We're one step towards it, and that's what scares me. So you talk about these dark dimensional beings. So, I mean, does that mean the idea of Satan or of a dark being like that? Is there such a thing, like a all evil being that's trying to orchestrate something here on Earth?
Well, I think, the way I set it up in this trilogy is that there are the Dark Lords of Orion are slipping through the quarantine around Earth and trying to get Earth for the dark side, and trying to control people, and trying to control people in business and corporations and banking to make them more greedy and more selfish, because that's how the dark side works.
Never underestimate the greed of humans.
Yeah, but when they're helped by the Dark Lords of Orion, they can even become more greedy. I mean, and maybe some humans have been totally taken over by the Dark Lords.
You wonder, because if you look, I mean, you hear all the conspiracy theories and stuff, but if you look at some of the stuff that the elitists or the rich do, and the kind of occultish stuff they're involved in, it's like they know about it.
Yeah.
Like they know they've sold themselves to the dark side.
Yeah. There's that idea that there's a worldwide, connection among the very wealthy that, that crosses all national boundaries, and they control most of the money, and that they're very dark.
Right.
I don't know about that. I haven't received information about that. That I just, heard here on Earth.
Yeah, well, it's because it's probably too dark side for you.
I don't know.
It might be too much for you, because I mean, you start going down that rabbit hole, you start getting into like people talking about human sacrifice and ritualistic, stuff like that. It's pretty dark side, but you have to wonder, how much, the stuff you're channeling, how much do you think, because I think back to like the Nazis, the Thule Society, they channeled, they had people who channeled aliens. Some people, believe they got alien technology or some of that through channeling.
Yeah.
Our government messed around with remote viewing, do you think any of the governments are aware of the same kind of information you are?
I think they probably are, because there are many channels. Many people are actually able to channel. I'm just a normal person who didn't even realize, when I was a little girl, I guess I was asking my parents a lot of strange questions, but your parents kind of discourage you from asking questions about like what's really going on here, and why did I see this, and what happened there. So you kind of repress it. A lot of us repress stuff. And then when you get older and you get information either through other channels or through psychics, and then you start getting information just right directly into your consciousness, you realize this could be happening to a lot of people. Because like in 2011, I was speaking to this guy, he's crossed over now, who was a channel, and he channeled extraterrestrials. And he told me, you really should channel. You should really allow that channel to open, not just in your private practice to help people, but, you know, you could bring in a lot of information. And he mentioned to me the Dark Lords of Orion at that time.
See, there's book. I wish I was trying to find it before the show, because I was, doing my research on you and what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm like, God, this is all just like this book. And I can't remember the name of the author. It wasn't you. I know it wasn't you. It was something Cloud or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
I will keep looking for it. Something about the Pleiadians, whatever. But it had all this stuff that you're talking about, like Maldek. And
wow.
I remember the Mars thing in the book. I read this. And the reason I bring this up is that when I read this book, I read it twice. A lot of people be like, why would you believe in any of this? Why, somebody said they channeled.
Yeah.
So what? But it resonated with me. There was some truth to it. Something I felt like was really resonated with me. This whole story this person lays out about the history of us, basically, of, our solar system and where we incarnated from. And one of the things is she, in this book, if I remember right, Mars kind of through their actions after Maldek basically invited the Orions to invade them through their actions.
Oh my God.
And the Orions came in and took over everything, and then everything went to pot, and then war broke out, and they ended up screwing up their atmosphere. Probably the Orions did, I think, or something like that. But
wow,
they invited
I'd love
all
to
upon them.
read that.
I will keep looking for it. I had a flood in my basement, so all my books got packed up, and I'm just recently unpacking them. So I'll keep looking and I'll let you know what it was, because it's
so nice to have stuff corroborated.
But that's the thing, you guys are talking about the same thing, and when I read the book, it really resonated with me. Like, I didn't just go, oh, this is a bunch of mumbo jumbo, which I do with a lot.
Yeah.
I was like, something about this really resonates with me. And I don't know what. I never read it anywhere else before. I didn't, the whole concept seemed original to me at the time, but I've heard other people channeling kind of similar things. So what are the Orions? Because I remember that I was trying to remember this from the book too. They seemed like they were some bad aliens.
That's what in 2011, when this guy was talking to me, he mentioned, that's the first time I heard of them, the Dark Lords of Orion. And he said, you need to channel information about them. And then I didn't, because it scared me. I didn't really want to be channeling any information about Dark Lords from Orion. I didn't know who they were or what they were. But in 2015 and 16, I just got another a shaman, actually, who helped me a lot, because my daughter was possessed when she was 16 years old.
Oh man. Or you sure wasn't she just a teenager?
No,
because they can seem possessed.
I was wishing it was just a teenager, because it was the worst experience of my life. But in that period, I took her to 5 psychiatrists. I took her to 4 psychologists, and nobody could touch it. No medication could touch, nothing. So I started seeking out shamans, and I found this one shaman who was the daughter of an Australian Aborigine, who was able to clear her. I know that the Catholic Church has exorcists in every diocese, but I just didn't want to go near religion. So I preferred to go the shamanic route.
Right.
And it saved her life. It saved her life. Apparently, I found out later, it was a dark shaman from her own bloodline that had died and wanted her body, but she didn't want to give it up. So she wanted to kill herself rather than be possessed. But for a time, that soul was in her body. And a second shaman told me after it was over that her own soul was back in her body, and it was wobbly, but it was there, and that her taproot had been torn loose from earth, and that this was not in my awareness at all, but that I had split my own taproot and tied her back to the earth, and that now we both needed to put down roots into the Mother Earth again to be secure here.
So you wouldn't get possessed.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be possessed, or so that we could hang on and not die. Because you need your cord connected to the earth as long as you have a physical body. So that was 9 years ago now, and ever since that exorcism, everything has been fine.
Yeah, see, I always count myself lucky with my experience because, I didn't have an exorcism. I didn't have
did it
anybody to help me.
yourself.
Well, I didn't do it myself. I just asked for God. I gave up. I said,
God did it.
Yeah, and that's how I look at it.
Surrendered.
That's why I believe in a higher power. I still don't subscribe to any religion, but I believe something was looking out for me because it drove me to my brink. It really was. I was a stupid, teenager, but it really knew how to hurt me and get in my head.
It's so true. And I'm not religious either, but I'm spiritual, and I absolutely believe in a higher power. And boy, the time I prayed more than any time in my life was when my child was going through that, because I thought,
what do
I
you
will
think?
die. If she dies, I will die.
Right.
I will not be able to live if she dies.
Well, I can't imagine how scary that had been as a parent. I mean, as a parent.
Oh my God. It was the worst experience of my life. And I think after that, I just said, oh, fuck it. I'm opening, opening my channel. I'm just going to open the channel and be like.
How do you think they talk about the root thing I'm not familiar with, but what do you ultimately think, how did she end up getting possessed? Like, where did she get it from, or how did it find her?
Well, what this other shaman told me was not the one who cleared her, but a second shaman told me that a dark shaman died, and that my daughter had the kind of power that shaman wanted. So it wanted her body. It no longer had a body. So it sought her out and possessed her. She's part Mayan Indian, my daughter.
I remember you saying, so it's because of the bloodline.
Yes, because of the bloodline. So and she didn't want to be possessed. She would have rather died. And so that's why no medication could work. Nothing could work to give her any relief. It was driving her crazy, just like your thing was driving you crazy.
Did it attack her in her dreams at night and stuff like that?
There was no sleep.
Right,
for days and weeks.
Exactly.
She was tormented.
Yes. Like it would rip me out of my body. Like literally, and take me and show me things to hurt me.
So to hurt you. So anyway, you survived and she survived, but I think it's by divine grace, by surrendering to God. I mean, I needed the help of a shaman, but I was praying every second. That's why the first book I wrote is called When Every Breath Becomes a Prayer, because I would just lie down, and I had to sleep in her room because I was afraid she would hurt herself. And I would be praying and breathing, and I didn't know whether my lips were breathing or praying. It was just, I was so scared because it was way beyond anything that I had ever encountered as a psychologist. And I worked in Bellevue Hospital in an adult inpatient unit with psychotic people, but I had never seen anything like this.
Well, you wonder, one of the things we speculate on this show, we do a lot of speculation, though, is some of the craziest, what we think is crazy people, but, active shooters, the ones who have not taken themselves out, a lot of times, I mean, this could be a psychological thing of what the act they've done, but they don't have memories of it. They weren't, I mean, they're responsible for their actions in the end, no matter what, in my opinion. But it's almost like
maybe they were possessed,
right? And it's a scary thought. So I tell people I'm not afraid of ghosts and all that. I'm afraid of people, because if evil's going to do anything, it needs people to do it. You know,
Oof.
I mean, yeah, I was
Yeah.
physically touched by evil and picked up and thrown down, but it didn't kill me, you know, but a person
Because
can.
love. But yeah, because love is stronger.
And that's what I felt when I was saved, was just this overwhelming wave of love.
Right.
Also a little bit of like, wag the finger at me. Like you stuck your nose in something. Don't do it again.
Yeah.
You know, because
love is the force. That's the force.
Right.
When you talk about let the force be with you, the force is love. It's the strongest force in all universes.
But love
it's
can make you go dark side. You know, what people will do for love, what they think is love, I guess, you know, but what people do for their children.
That isn't love though.
That's
If
fear.
you go to that fear and possession.
Yeah.
You know, when people, or jealousy, whatever, you know, that's, you know, they want their desire or something and they might be so jealous.
Well, when I say fear, is like Star Wars parable here is Anakin Skywalker has visions of the future of his, you know, Padme dying in childbirth, and he turns to the dark side out of fear because he's going to lose her. He can't stop the future from happening. You know, love and fear mixed together can be a very dangerous thing.
Too powerful. But both Darth Vader and Kylo Ren come back to the light before they die, which is so wonderful.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the new trilogy, but it was this last one was a lot better. And I did like the story arc there with Kylo Ren, because it does go to the light, makes the right decision. And it was like, you know, he kind of sacrificed, not the spoilers, sorry. You know,
Yeah.
I'll leave people. Go ahead.
Everybody's seen it by now, right?
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, it was also nice for women to have Rey be so powerful.
Right.
You know, that, and it was also fascinating to me about Kylo Ren and Rey sharing this power and this connection, because
I liked that. My favorite parts of the worst movie was Last Jedi. I know we're geeking out on Star Wars here, but my favorite part is when Rey and Kylo team up. That's like the best part of the movie. They should have ended that movie right there. We got to go to commercial break. We're getting sucked into Star Wars talk here. We're going to get more back into fifth and sixth dimensional beings, light or dark, light side or dark side. Join the dark side. No, we'll be back with that. And then we will open up the phone lines. I'll give out those phone numbers when we come back for commercial break. Call in with your questions tonight. You know, we're talking about the history maybe of the universe here, or our little universe, our consciousness evolution. You know, did you come from another planet? Do you believe that? I definitely feel like I'm alien to this world, always have. So call in if you feel you're an alien too. All right, guys, we'll be right back after this short commercial break.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
This is an Apex Studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college. I've got a family to support and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
For every earthling who's ever dreamed of adventures beyond the stars comes the astonishing story of one who made it, Alex Rogan.
You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Sur and the Kodan Armada.
Of all the life forms in all the galaxies, one has been chosen to be the last starfighter. The Last Starfighter, with the film of the #1 hit Do They Know It's Christmas, the official Band-Aid story. In the West End and across London now, rated PG.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Vince, you said before you were waiting for a sign. What sign are you waiting for?
Gozer the Traveler. He will come in one of the pre-chosen forms. During the rectification of the Valdrani, the Traveler came as a large and moving torb. Then, during the third reconciliation of the last of the McKettrick supplicants, they chose a new form for him, that of a giant slore. Many Shubs and Zools knew what it was to be roasted in the depths of the slore that day, I can tell you.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Susan Plunket, author of Mission from Venus. We're talking about her channeling of dimensional beings, of the history of maybe humankind in our solar system, Maldek, Mars. And I said, I read this before years ago. I need to find this book I read. But does it resonate with you? You can call in tonight. We only have the 2 phone lines open. I already got somebody on hold. But the phone lines are open, 219-230-4444. That's 219-230-4444. Or Skype ID 00JBland00. Those are the 2 ways to call in tonight. If I hang up on you, just try calling back after the phone call gets off. We only have 1 phone with 2 lines, so that's why we can take 1 call at a time. So just try calling back. And if you do call in, you hear us talking, just wait till we call on you, and then you get to ask your question. But I'm really enjoying this conversation. I know we geeked out a little bit on Star Wars, and I said, well, most everybody's seen it by now. I forgot my wife hasn't seen it, so I don't want to spoil it anymore. So no more Star Wars spoilers. I'll try not to. Can't help it. Sorry. I can't help geek out when a guest goes down the Star Wars path. But let's go ahead and get right back into it. still there with me, Susan?
I'm right here.
My wife's Susan. My wife's name's Susan. Hasn't seen Star Wars. I forgot. I'm saying, oh yeah, most of everybody's seen it. I forgot my wife didn't see it. Whoops. Sorry, honey.
All right. No more spoilers.
No more spoilers. No more spoilers. I can Rob. But well, and Rob hasn't seen it.
It reminded me that I wanted to talk about one other concept, actually. And it's the concept of twin flames.
Oh.
In the book, Mission from Venus, in the trilogy, the call goes out across the universe asking for volunteers to come to Venus. And I don't mean Venus in the third dimension.
Right, because people are like, well, isn't it got like acid and rain?
Yeah,
and,
sulfuric acid atmosphere and surface temperature of 800 degrees. No, but
hot.
they're coming to Venus in the sixth dimension to train. And Venus in the sixth dimension is very beautiful and supports all kinds of life. And all planets exist simultaneously in every dimension. So we only perceive, because we're third dimensional, we only perceive Venus in the third dimension with an atmosphere of sulfuric acid. But Venus also exists in all the other dimensions before the greenhouse effect happened there and after it was healed. And I have one of the chapters in the second book explains how Venus was healed from the greenhouse effect.
And I remember from this other book that she talked about Venus also being a planet with life on it too. That's why everything you're saying is like, God, I gotta find this book because it's like right up that same alley. You guys are channeling the same thing.
Well, apparently, I didn't channel this, but I read it somewhere that it was a group of Venusians, people from Venus, that directed the building of the pyramids. And I'm not sure what they were called, whether they were the Hathors or what, but so I read that somewhere in a book that I don't have anymore. But what I was getting to is as the call goes out across the galaxies, multi-galaxies, to come if you want to volunteer for this mission to Earth, you come and train. And among the people, the beings, the higher dimensional beings in the book that come to train are some twin flames. And by twin flames, I mean at the time each of us flies out from source, each of our sparks, yours, mine, your wife's, your children, mine, all the listeners, we're all a spark which once flew out from source to have our journey through all the dimensions and find our way back to source. Some sparks at the moment of flying out split into two and go about all their many lifetimes. And when they evolve back up the dimensions, at some point they reunite. And those are called twin flames. And the book follows 4 pairs of twin flames. And at the end of the book, when they're born as babies on Earth, they don't know that they're twin flames. They don't know that they're from a higher dimension. They don't know that they've come on a mission. They think that they're just ordinary humans, except as they go through childhood and start to grow up, they have some strange abilities or powers and they start to feel different. And book 2 begins when they're 21 and they're starting to meet their twin flames, even though they may be on a different continent. They're all born into different countries, all of the beings that have been trained on Venus. And the story is going to follow 4 pair of twin flames. And that I was reminded of that because of Kylo and Rey. But
yeah, because they share this like connection in the Palpatine like says, "Oh, you're a what did they call it?" He called it like a
I forget what he called it, but it was the most powerful thing.
Yeah, and he like totally sucks energy. Spoilers, there I go. I'm an awful person. Yeah. I'm a horrible Star Wars.
No, you're not. You can't help yourself. I know the feeling.
I got people trying to call in. So you all right if we take a phone call here? Because I got a couple people trying to call in here. So we got 860 area code. Who do we got on the line?
Hi, Jason. This is Azariana.
Hey, Azariana, thanks for calling in.
You're welcome. I have a question for your guest, Susan.
Yeah.
As she channels, I was wondering if she's ever been to a planet where aliens of higher intelligence have conquered violence and warring and all the other stuff. It's almost like another Earth. And when I channel and astral travel, I sometimes go to this place. And I was wondering, I have never heard anybody talk about it, but I was going to ask her if she's ever heard of it from the information that she gets.
I don't have the ability to astro travel as you do, so I haven't, but to my knowledge, visited other planets. But I have heard, not while I was channeling, but I have heard that there's more than one Earth. But what occurs to me, and I don't know whether I'm channeling this now talking to you or just it's my own thought, but I'm wondering if you're traveling to Earth in the future, in a different time, because before he died, in the channel that I spoke to back in 2011 told me that in a few hundred years, Earth would be a paradise, and there would be no more war, and that it would go to the light side, and they would have conquered hate. And the way you describe where you go sounds like the way he described the paradise that Earth would be once we moved fully into the fourth dimension, because we wouldn't have the pain of the third dimension. So it's possible that you're going to Earth as it will be in what we think of as the future, but the fact is there is no time. Everything is happening at once. So you may just, in your astral travel, be visiting Earth as she will be in what we would think of the future, but it is actually already existing.
Well, we've had guests on that do hypnosis, reincarnation, and regression, but they go into future lives.
Right.
Like time's relative.
Well,
exactly.
Well, this Earth has 2 suns and 2 moons. So I know it's not in this galaxy or anything like
so
that.
That's not what I'm thinking. Yeah. That's amazing. I've never been there, but how wonderful for you to be able to go to such a wonderful place.
Well, maybe it's a planet that is, on a little bit further of a evolution than us, and are in that fourth dimension. That's why it's so nice.
Yeah, it sounds like a higher dimensional planet.
Yeah, and they're telepathic, so you don't actually talk like we talk. It's all telepathically.
It definitely sounds like a higher dimension. How wonderful for you that you can go there.
Well, I've been trying to get information on this from trying to read it, hear about it, if anybody talks about it, and I don't hear anything about it. It seems as though I'm the only one that
maybe you have a past life from there. Maybe you're a wanderer.
Well, I know. I am. I'm a traveler. So.
Well, thank you, Azariana, for calling in. You keep wandering.
Thank you for answering my question. Thank you. Have a good night.
You do.
You too.
Well,
Bye-bye.
I've heard people who channel like their future lives and stuff like that. I've heard that over the years, and some of them turned out to be, I'll have to admit, one of them that used to do this was a total crackpot.
But really, if there's no time, We
Right.
we remember the past, but we could also remember the future.
Right.
Since physicists tell us that there's no time, we just don't remember the future. But there's no reason we couldn't. And people who see the future, they don't have that block. They're able to remember the future as well as the past. It's a wild thing about time.
The future's always in motion, as Yoda would say, though. So it could change. That's the other thing.
Because we have free will.
Right. I mean, if it's destined, there's no free will. We had a psychic on here believed everything was predestined, no free will.
No, there's free will in this planet and in the third dimension.
Well, we're going to take another phone call because my phone line's blowing up here. So I'm going to let's try to get as many people in as we can here. We got Zach on the line. How you doing tonight, Zach?
I'm doing pretty good, my man. How you doing?
Doing good. You got a question for our guest tonight?
Yep. Got 2 questions, but I'll keep them nice and short. Hey, Susan.
Hi.
My first question to you relates to the Council of Nine. Now, based on your experiences of channeling these entities, are they one group of race, or are they like a very diverse group of race? And if they are the latter, what kind of extraterrestrial species do they fall under based on numerous eyewitnesses' accounts?
I don't actually see the beings that I channel, but 2 different psychics have told me that they see them around me. And this isn't the Council of Nine. I don't channel the Council of Nine. I see the Council of Nine in my mind as violet ovals. But the beings that other psychics have seen around me, they haven't told me what group they fall into, but they've told me that they're kind of long blue beings with small heads. And I don't see them myself. I only can see them through the psychics telling me. I just get the information from them. But apparently they're not from the Milky Way galaxy. And apparently I was with them before I incarnated as human, and I will be going back to them in my next life. And that was frightening to me to hear, because I love Earth and I really want to go to another galaxy for my next life.
I mean, is your daughter going to go with you to that other galaxy? That'd be my question.
That was my first thought.
Yep, I know it is, because you're a parent.
Yeah, that she probably has her own life path. That was why I was thinking, I can't go so far to another galaxy. But I will tell you that when my father died, the day of his funeral, I was passing a hotel and my daughter said, "Oh, that hotel is having a psychic fair." So we pulled in, and the psychic told me things only my father would have known, like,
right.
Your father's thanking you for putting those cashmere socks on him in the hospital. And that was true. And she said, your father is leaving our solar system. He's not coming back here. And I felt, she said, he'll be around for another 6 months and then he'll be leaving our solar system. So I thought, well, I remembered that when I was told recently that I would be leaving Earth. So I thought, well, maybe my daughter will be. If not my daughter, I might see my father again somewhere.
And if you're able to travel these distances, who's to say you can't visit them, right?
It's true. It's true. I mean, there's no,
but
I write in the book that if higher dimensional beings, they set their frequency and they spin their Merkaba around their own body, and they can travel instantly anywhere they want, no matter how many light years away it is. So you're right. We can travel once we learn how.
Zach, you always have another follow-up question. Usually you got another one?
Yeah, I do actually. So it relates to the Council of Nine once again. Have these individuals ever told you how they get to be on the Council of Nine? Are they voted in, or
remember she doesn't channel? She doesn't
channel.
channel the Council of Nine, though. She doesn't channel them. She's seen them, right?
You're right. But I don't know why I think this, Zach, but I think that it's a rotating, they're higher dimensional beings, and it's a rotating job. And I think they probably do it for a certain amount of time, and then they rotate out. It's their service for this part of the galaxy. I don't know that that's true, though. And I don't know why I'm telling you that. If someone's dropping it in, or I just
channeled
made it up.
information, right? Well, thank you, Zach, for calling in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Susan, for answering my questions. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, have a good night, Zach.
Good night, Zach.
Yeah, the phone lines are actually blowing up right now. Like I told you, we sometimes get a couple, sometimes we get a lot of phone calls here. I don't want to run out of time. You good taking another one?
Sure.
All right, we got 847 area code. Who do we got?
This is Mike. Hi.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah. Hey, what's the easiest way to find out where we came from? Like, we know it was, or, have a good sense that it was, from another life, and then there's a reason for us to be here. But, because when you're like 50 years old, you put it all together by then, and then, but, maybe you're not very good at being hypnotized. I mean, is there another way that we can find out where we came from, as our purpose unfolds, and then we discover, we sort of know our purpose like now, but I mean, there's a yearning to find out where we came from. You know what I mean?
Like your Mike, you mean like your
comment?
You mean like your past lives, and like if you were an alien or wanderer?
Well, not alien, but is an easy way to do it. Can she? Does she know an easy way to find out besides hypnotism?
Well, I think the best way to find out is to be in communication with your own higher self, who knows all your past lives, all your future lives, and your purpose. And there are two ways that I communicate with my higher self. One is meditation, and the other one was what I was talking to Jason about, was when I did the life between life regression, and I traveled to the other side and was merged temporarily with an aspect of my higher self who had a different name from me. So you could do a life between life regression. Takes a little bit of time, because usually there are very few people who do it, but there are books on it. It's called Life Between Life. And the therapist will work with you to learn, for about 4 hours, to teach you how to go through regression to past lives. And then another, the next session, a week or so later, will take you to your last death and take you over. And that's about another 4-hour session. So you can do that, meet your higher self, and ask, where did I come from? What is my purpose? The general purpose for all of us is to evolve back to source.
I think what Mike's asking, though, is like for people who can't get, because it's hard to find people that are going to do regression and do all that, like for somebody individually, what can they do to help explore these things within inside themselves without seeing a hypnotherapist or anything like that?
Right. Then meditation and asking for his higher self to communicate with him, like sitting or lying flat on his back and imagining his energy moving up from his from his navel to his heart to his third eye, out the top of his head, 15 feet or so above his head, seeing like spinning light and moving then even 100 feet out and stretching out his energy and asking his higher self and the angelic realm to inform him about his origins and his purpose. And with daily practice, like even 20 minutes a day, if you can't sit with your back straight, then just lie flat on your bed or flat on the floor. Breathe into your navel, then breathe into your heart, your third eye, and breathe up through the crown to the external chakras, the 5 extrinsic chakras. I described this process actually in Mission from Venus. There are several exercises actually in the book Mission from Venus, which you could practice, which would help you get in touch with your higher self. And you can do it yourself, but it would be very good if you could spend 15 or 20 minutes a day. It's very wonderful that you want to know this and that you're curious and that you care. That's such a beautiful question you've asked.
Yeah.
I don't know if you like to read, but
yeah, I was going to say this is a very difficult time for everybody in the world, and
it is.
and you know, it's an exciting time, but it's a very dangerous time and a serious time, and there's not a lot of time to really I don't know what to say about that, but yeah, it's a very serious time that we're in right now, and that's what brings up the question for myself, you know, because the people who are here now are very particular to this moment in time that we're going to be going through in the world, and so that's what poses the you know, the question, you know, not for everybody, but you know, for people who understand what we're facing in this moment in history of this time and space. You know, it's yeah, definitely. I because once you could look back, maybe then this will make even more sense, because of this time that we're in is so unique as to any other time in history, you know. So
it does feel like we're going through some growing pains right now. Well, thank you, Mike, for calling in.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's very helpful. I wrote that down. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, get Mission from Venus, because you will have hope and you will understand what we're going through right now, that we're ending a 75,000 year period on Earth. And it's our opportunity to move as a planet and a people into the 4th dimension.
All right. You have a great night, Mike.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye, Mike.
You know, you brought up one of the things it made me think of is you brought up what the aliens looked like they were around you. You said they were bluish.
Yeah.
Small heads. It would remind me of when I was in my early 20s, I was getting into meditation deeply. I was doing candle meditation, and I got my cousin to do it with me. Same when I saw the green floating head with me. We were little kids.
You were quite a pair.
And I freaked him out. Because we're doing this kind of meditation. He's supposed to be trying to see something in the candle, but he looked up and he looked at me. He goes, "You completely changed. I saw you. You were like this bluish alien looking person for a few moments, and you had like these lights flying around you, and then it was gone." And he didn't want to do it again because he felt like he was weirded out by me a little bit by what he saw around me. I'm like, I don't know. I always told you I felt like an alien, you know, but that's what he saw, you know.
You appeared to him, you know, in your astral body, probably. He saw it.
What is weird about it is that I used to draw, when I used to be into art and painting and that, I used to draw like this bluish angel-like kind of alien creature. I don't know what he was, but I used to draw that and paint that. So I wonder.
Sounds like he was you. He was
Maybe.
you in a different dimension.
I was blue, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
I don't know. The other thing, Zach, our previous caller there brought up too, is like he was trying to find out like if the Council of Nine were any sort of the aliens are spotted here. But I am curious about, we've had plenty of guests on here that are having encounters with aliens on this planet. Abductees or contactees.
Right.
You mentioned that we're quarantined, which I've heard that from abductees and contactees. What is going on with the alien presence here?
Well, my understanding is that the quarantine was placed around Earth 75,000 years ago when the Martians were brought here because they were genetically manipulated to be less warlike. And the Council of Nine later said that that was a violation, that there was supposed to be free will and no being on Earth should be manipulated. And therefore, to prevent any further interference, a quarantine was placed around Earth. However, some beings can slip through the quarantine, like the Dark Lords of Orion can slip through. The highest dimensional beings don't need spaceships, but there are, as we know, there are UFOs and there are spaceships landing, and many people have had the feeling or the belief that they're abducted. So many that I know 2 psychiatrists who run groups for people
Right.
who believe that they were abducted and are. So there's a big group in New York City. There's another group in Boston, and they meet every week with a psychiatrist to process their experiences.
Well, they're hugely traumatic experiences, physically,
Yeah.
mentally. A good friend of mine, Terry Lovelace, has been on the show a couple times now. He wrote the book Incident at Devil's Den. I mean, his experience is nothing but negative and physical. And I mean, what makes me wonder is like, this quarantine, Terry's experience, he was on a big triangle UFO. And a ship, and there were human-like beings there wearing like uniforms, like tannish with orange symbols, like a military, So they're bad guys. They're breaking the quarantine.
Yeah.
So they're up to nefarious things.
Right. They're not supposed to be doing that. Yeah. They're slipping through. They're slipping through the quarantine, and they're not supposed to do that, but they do.
Do you think that's something our government's aware of too? I mean, is that why there is no disclosure?
I heard even years ago that Eisenhower actually spoke to aliens who wanted permission to come, and he said that he felt the people of Earth would be too freaked out. So I think the governments know a lot more than they share.
Well, the Eisenhower story was that, like, if I remember right, he met with one group of aliens that seemed to be peaceful, and if we accepted their help, they would help, but they offered us nothing, like no technology, no nothing.
Yeah.
And Eisenhower said no. But then we made a deal with aliens that were like, we'll give you technology, we'll give you this, just don't mind us abducting the humans.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, well, that's one of the conspiracy kind of theories that run around.
Yeah.
Who knows what's true or not? But taking people against their will can't be good. Now, I've had people on here who are contactees. I've had people that were contactees on here. They're not abducted; they willingly go with these aliens and to tell similar kind of deals. I'm slipping on one of them. One of the guests I had was a contactee, and I can't think of his name. I'm sorry. He was taken on a big ship, and it was dimensional, like you talk, like even Jupiter was in a different dimensional plane, had living beings on it because he was on Jupiter.
Yeah.
So that they can exist on any of these planets in a different dimensional plane.
Exactly. Like we only perceive the planets in our solar system, for example, as they exist in the third dimension, but they do exist in every dimension simultaneously. It's hard to get our minds around that because we are so used to time, because if we didn't have time, we would freak out. If everything was happening at once, it would just freak us out. So we spread it all out so that we don't go crazy, but we know from physics that there is no time, that we're just agreeing to that. So some of this stuff is truly mind-blowing.
True. Now, for the aliens breaking the quarantine, this is, you wonder, you go back to the crash in 1947, Roswell.
Yeah.
That seems to be like the wave of alien stuff that happened in 1947 and on. There seems something shifted or changed.
Well, I don't know much astrology, but astrologists say that we left in the 1940s, the late 1940s, we left the dark Piscean age and we entered the age of Aquarius, which we are in each age for 2,000 years. And to be fully in the new age takes about 200 years. So that's why that musical came out in the 60s called Hair.
Yeah, but
the
that song
Age of
stuck in my head.
Aquarius. Yeah, the Age of Aquarius. So that there was a shift it might have been 1947 from the Piscean age into the Aquarian age. And
so you think like Roswell was that shift?
It could have been part of that shift. But, the governments, because of World War II, were doing those experiments,
Right.
out the Montauk experiment. And
Oh, yeah.
they were moving things into a different dimension temporarily.
Well,
And the
Montauk
people
happens later on, and I think
Right.
partly because of our exposure to aliens.
Yeah, we got that technology.
Mhm.
There's still some men living who are on that. But it messed them up to move them into another dimension and then bring them back. Because that ship disappeared. That ship temporarily disappeared.
What ship?
The ship that was off the coast of Montauk.
Oh.
It disappeared because it went into another dimension.
Oh, you're talking
And
about
I
the
don't know-
Philadelphia. You're talking about the Philadelphia
Oh, the
experiment.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah, the
Montauk, but it's
Philadelphia.
It's related. Okay, the
Related,
Philadelphia experiment. Yeah, because that's related. Because later on, Montauk was able to, according to I'm forgetting the name of one of the main people who was supposed to be part of the Philadelphia experiment. But Montauk was able to do crazy things like put somebody's soul into a new person, like rebirth them to use them
Wow.
later, like crazy stuff like that. And we're part of keeping the time loop open for the happened with the Philadelphia experiment. That's a whole other rabbit hole to go down. But
Yeah,
it shows
I
that we're touching upon manipulating time and reality and dimensions.
Yeah.
I mean, people are freaking out about CERN, opening up a hole to another dimension. I mean, could we be playing
Right.
with our own destruction when we're doing this kind of stuff, like Mars did?
Yeah, we could be, or, hopefully, and I believe this, that we really are moving more toward the light and that Earth will go into the fourth dimension and has begun to go into the fourth dimension. Your last caller was speaking about what an auspicious moment this is on Earth. And I think that's because we're moving into the fourth dimension. And I do believe we're going on the path of light, even though it can feel very dark in many parts of the world right now. I think it may be because a lot of these evils are hatching out.
Or a lot of more people are becoming aware of
And people
evils.
are becoming aware. But that we will move into the fourth dimension on the path of light. And there will be paradise on Earth within a few hundred years.
But the aliens that are breaking these quarantines, they're trying to prevent that, right? They're trying to stop us from moving into the fourth dimension.
Yeah, they will. No, they let us move into the fourth dimension, but on the path of dark. The planets can either go to the dark side or the light side.
So either way, we're going to
And
the fourth dimension.
We're going to the fourth dimension. We're on the way there. We got a foot in the door already. So the Dark Lords of Orion want Earth for the dark planet group. But the Council of Nine says you're not supposed to interfere. And that's why they slipped through the quarantine, because they're not supposed to come here.
Al
feeling
Bielek.
is-
That somebody answered that question for me. It was Al Bielek. That was the whole
Ah.
Philadelphia experiment. And then he was like because his age didn't match up to be for the Philadelphia experience, and he had like another name. He was part of the Philadelphia experiment, but they basically took him and made him, if I remember right, he was born, like they took his soul and time traveled his soul back to another year so he could. It's really really out there story.
Wow.
But Albion never changed it, and he told that story for many years that he was this other person that was part of the Philadelphia experiment, and then he was reborn after time traveling.
Amazing.
Like he traveled from the Philadelphia experiment, which was the early 1940s, and then ended up in the 1980s, and then they sent him back and he was reborn. It was really, really interesting story.
Wild.
But if we're doing those things, it seems like we're breaking the rules. Like we're getting involved in stuff that probably the Council of Nine wouldn't approve of.
Yeah, probably not. Well, if it's just humans doing it, it's okay. But if it's somebody coming through the quarantine and controlling humans, then it's against the laws governing Earth, because there are laws for incarnating here.
Well, people that were involved in that,
our free will,
that might have unlocked that. One of the first people involved that might have been involved in the Philadelphia experience was Tesla. And you're talking about somebody, if there was somebody who was an alien on Earth, that guy had to have been it.
Tesla was a wanderer, because Tesla wanted everyone to have electricity for free.
Yeah, that wasn't going down with JP Morgan.
No, but I mean, Tesla was definitely a wanderer. And I think Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, I think they were wanderers. They came and they wanted to make life better here, and they voluntarily came. Jesus was a wanderer. He was a higher fourth dimensional being.
Can wanderers go dark side?
Unfortunately, they can if the dark side gets a hold of them and in some way manages to corrupt them. And the dark side would love to get a wanderer. But usually the dark side attacks weaker-minded individuals because it's easier prey for them. It would be harder, much harder for them.
Well, you say that. That's what makes me, my experience with the shadow person, it tried to break me down. I'm not saying I'm a really strong.
It didn't get you.
It didn't get me, but
you are strong. You are strong.
It almost did, you know what I'm saying? And then I wonder how many people it does get and what happens when it does.
Yeah.
What would have been the consequence if I gave into this thing,
Wouldn't have been good.
Yeah.
Because you're enslaved then. You're like a genie in the bottle. You're a slave once they get a hold of you.
Now, for wanderers, could wanderers live other past lives here? Or they've been wandering for a while, or they just have the one incarnation here?
I think it can be either way. I think some wanderers come for one incarnation and some wanderers stay longer. Depends on what they're willing to do. Because if you're from the fourth or fifth dimension, and you willingly incarnate into the third dimension, you're giving up mental telepathy, you're giving up astral travel, you're giving up all your higher powers. You're reducing your vibration, you're slowing your vibration to fit into these bodies that we wear, which are kind of like a big battery, a heavy chemical body. It's very different. So they may come for one lifetime, or they may commit to go on incarnating if they really feel they can be of help.
Because I've had some experiences, I've talked about on the show, very vivid dreams that convince me I've lived other lives. But I also feel like I'm an alien to this planet. Even though I've been on this planet, lived other lives, I still feel like, probably every current incarnation, I feel like I'm alien to this planet.
Well, you may have decided to commit to really help planet Earth transition. And so you probably are a wanderer who's come to be of service. Like your show is of service. You're giving service. Like I feel my books are service because they give hope and a higher perspective. And that's what your show does.
I try to.
People a place.
That's exactly why I do it, because I do want to give people a place to have a voice and discuss and exchange ideas and not feel intimidated to do so.
And not feel alone with strange things.
Right, exactly. Because that's one of the reasons I felt alien all my life is, seeing a green floating head, talking to a girl that wasn't there, and having dreams that are show me the exact future, what's going to happen. And then it happens, stuff like that. Just my experiences differ from so many people around me that just like look at me if like I'm crazy if I bring any of that up.
It's probably your higher dimensional, your superpowers leaking through. I read about that in Mission from Venus. Like when these wanderers are growing up on Earth, their families notice things about them that are different, and their powers kind of leak through even before they fully remember that they're wanderers from a higher dimension on a mission to help Earth move to the fourth dimension on the path of light.
Well, go ahead, sorry.
And all the other thing is that as we move toward the fourth dimension, we're all evolving too. So some people who call into your show are probably evolving into their powers too, because eventually we'll all be telepathic. We'll all be able to do astral travel. We'll all be able to fight off shadow figures.
After my experience, I've encountered shadow people again. I call them shadow people. And they've kept, I always felt like they've kept their distance from me since then.
Because they know they're going to lose with you. Because you're going to call on the light. You're going to call on the divine. You're going to call on the light and the love. And that is stronger than them, because love is the strongest force in any universe.
Now, when you talk about the transition into the fourth dimension, I mean, how does that, what happens to our planet? What's that going to be like for the whole planet to transition into the fourth dimension? Is it going to be just wake up one day, we're in the fourth dimension? Or, I mean,
no, it's just, it's a process. I think we're moving there now. The toxins have to flush out, the poisons have to hatch out, and the planet has to become purified.
We got a lot of poisons in this planet. I mean,
we have poisons, but what will happen is that people who cannot hold enough light will not be able to come back when Earth is fully fourth dimensional.
Oh, so they'll be barred from being here.
They will be barred.
That's like hell. It's like the concept of hell then, isn't it?
Right. It is a little bit, but they will have a place to go. They will have to go to another third dimensional planet, spend another 75,000 years incarnating on a third dimensional planet and trying once again to learn the lessons of love so that they can then make the fourth dimension, and then they can, move into the fourth dimension on some planet that's fourth dimensional. So once Earth moves to the fourth dimension, and third dimensional people who can't hold enough light to move to the fourth dimension, when they die, they won't be coming back here. So it will be paradise on Earth, and everybody will have consciousness.
Do you think we'll even notice? I mean, obviously it'd be different. But I mean, is it such a gradual change we won't notice?
It's gradual, and it's happening already. And we may see inklings of it. We may see, and we may feel inklings of it amid the horror of things that are happening, and the renewals and the purging. Like the whole continent of Australia is on fire.
Right.
With tornado fires, 1 billion animals have died. This has got to be so that consciousness can come of what we're doing to this beautiful planet. Consciousness has got to come. We need to, shift away from oil and gas and use wind and solar, and or
energy, zero energy free alien technology.
There's energy in the 0 point field.
Right.
There's energy in the quantum vacuum, and in fact, there are people that believe that we have the technology to get that energy, but it was suppressed.
Right.
By the secrecy law of 1951.
Right. Well, because it would destroy our economy. It would destroy all those corporations making all that money off of it.
Exactly. The corporations want that suppressed. The military-industrial complex wants that technology suppressed, but it will come to light in the age of Aquarius. It will come to light. That patent will be revealed. or there will be another wanderer who comes and we get the formula again.
Yeah, because they've killed off a lot of people that have come up with a free energy. It sounds like you hear about people like guy dies mysteriously. After coming up with a car that runs on water or whatever, screaming they poisoned me. That's a real story, actually. Obviously we've done. I mean, Tesla wanted to give us free energy, and J.P. Morgan was like, "No, you can't do that."
Exactly.
The interesting thing is, I think Tesla's concept of free energy, we wouldn't have cell phones or microprocessors, because the way he wanted to do it would have kind of kept us away from getting all the nice computer technology, because the way he wanted to pump energy through the air would have made making what it said. Somebody was pointing out that it would have made microprocessing and a lot of other technology not be able to use, because of how he wanted to generate energy. I don't know if that's true, but maybe we'd be better off without those things. I don't know. Maybe. I think some technology is not helping us evolve. Because when we think about transhumanism, that there's a movement within that one of the execs of Google, and the big time of Google, is a big transhumanist and believes we're going to become part machine, part man. That you got to look at what we're doing technology wise. They're making robots out of living organisms. These things have to be bad, third dimensional bad guy kind of scenarios, right? I mean, we don't want to become part man, part machine.
I don't. For sure. I want to become light. I want to become just light and love. I want to evolve to be less heavy and less chemical and less mechanical and more toward the light.
Yeah, but there's a part of us in our future where we're heading where that might not happen. They're talking about, I mean, you got Elon Musk talking about this. You got the Google people talking about putting, chips in people's brains so they can access the internet and get any information they want, have super minds, people that, hooking themselves up to machines to live forever. I mean, the Matrix idea.
Crazy. That's crazy to me, because you do live forever. I mean, you just don't live forever in the same body. You don't need to be hooked up to a machine to live forever. We do live forever.
Yeah, but if you're an atheist, or you're a scientist, you don't believe in any of that. Well, what's the solution? Let's make ourselves machines and live forever.
Wow, that's crazy. And we don't need a chip in our brain. We just need to open up our intuition.
But if we have a chip in our brain, we'll never discover that, would we? We wouldn't move into that fourth dimension. See where I'm going with this?
I do see where you're going, but maybe people conceptualize that chip in the brain idea, and then they realize, I don't need the chip. I can just do it. I can just do it. I know much more than I think, and I can just connect.
A lot of the people that tout the biblical revelations and the mark of the beast say it's a chip. Maybe the Bible is trying to warn us, of what not to do if we want to move on to the next level.
Whoa.
That's something I've always thought about, when it comes to where we're going, and transhumanism scares me.
Yeah, it scares me too.
And we were already becoming transhuman. We don't have chips in our brains, but we go right to our phone and go to Google. I do. You look for something.
I know, we all do. We're always looking stuff
We're becoming more and more dependent on this technology, and it's going to be really easy, I think, for future generation, not our generation. Our generation's seen enough science fiction movies. Are like, no, but younger generations are talking about it. You got these people putting chips in them purposely. I mean, future generations might be more adapt to the idea of putting a chip in their brain.
I think we need more people thinking let me just travel with the force. Let me just use the force. I don't need a chip. I can just use the force like you did to fight off the shadow.
And what's Darth Vader in the dark side? More machine than man now.
Exactly.
See, there's all these things, I swear, that life and stories and authors are trying to tell us through story to get us
through story. It's so much easier to get it through story.
One of the stories I always, love when I think, because I always, I'm a big reader. I used to be a lot bigger reader, but I read fictional novels. And since I was a kid, I always imagined that, well, maybe in some multiverse universe, this is a real story. This author's channeling something in another universe, maybe in some universe, I'm Batman kind of idea,
Exactly.
But, one of the famous, ideas of this is the guy who wrote The Wreck of the Titanic, or it was called Futility. He wrote it 14 years before the Titanic, and it literally is the wreck of the Titan. And it literally maps out exactly what happens with the Titanic. It was written 14 years before. It's like this author unknowingly wrote a disaster novel about a disaster that was going to happen. He channeled it.
Amazing. I mean, it isn't amazing. I absolutely believe this happens all the time. And I believe when even my book, Mission from Venus, that there are 70 million wanderers here. And you're probably one of them. And people who offer this kind of information like you do on your show, you're probably all wanderers, your whole network, probably Art Bell was a wanderer.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh yeah. And probably people who call in are wanderers, and people who listen are wanderers, and they're drawn to you because of that.
Well,
my understanding is that there are about 70 million wanderers on Earth right now, helping Earth transition to the fourth dimension.
Well, Earth's going to need a lot of help probably transitioning. You just, you want to, I want to believe this. I do in my soul believe that we are transitioning, or we're having birthing pains right now, but
yeah.
The dark side, it is so depressing, when you look at the face of evil in this country, in this world.
But they won't be, Earth will not be habitable for them once its vibration gets higher, because it will be too uncomfortable for them. And also, once Earth goes to fourth dimension on the light side, people who can't hold that amount of light will have to incarnate on another third dimensional planet. And we have help. We have so much help, but we have to ask. See, no one can interfere with our affairs on Earth. They do. They slip through, and they do. But if you ask, if you request, if you call on the light, it will come to your aid.
That was my experience with my shadow person experience. We got to go to our last. Go ahead.
That's true. You just call for help, and then you can have it.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly my situation. I think just that moment and that instance of being attacked by pure darkness and evil, I felt that it was calling out to the light saved me in that moment. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel is what that taught me. All right, guys, we're gonna go to our last commercial break. We'll be back with our guest Susan Plunket, author of Mission from Venus. All right, guys, we'll be right back.
Intercepted transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
Phantasm, the film that puts the fun in funeral. And as for a fiendish story, it does have a burial plot. Come prepared to scream, because if this one doesn't scare you, you're already dead. Phantasm from Avco Embassy Pictures. Rated R under 17, not admitted without parent.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
New from Mostly Healthy Foods, Orange Flare Orange Juice. Every glass has a ray of sunshine.
Wow! It has a ray of sunshine in every glass? Father, can I have some?
Sure, son. My God! My face is melting!
Every glass has a ray of sunshine! And yes, it's also a tasty beverage and a high-energy plasma. Sweet Mother of God, close the damn carton! Oh, how am I still alive inventing this horrible product?
My body is riddled with tumors and the energy to play.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.
Tonight, we've been talking with our guest, Susan Plunket, author of Mission from Venus, about dimensional beings, our purpose here on Earth, Moving into the fourth dimension, a lot of different topics we're getting into on tonight. Leads down a lot of different rabbit holes. And yeah, some Star Wars spoilers. Sorry for that earlier. But you can call in tonight if you got a question for our guests. We still got time to take your call. Call in at 219-230-4444. That's 219-230-4444 or Skype ID OOJBland00. Call in. We'll take your questions. I am trying to watch the chat room. If you got a question in the chat room, I will try to get it up there too. We have chat rooms on YouTube and Facebook for those who are listening on the radio network. That's where the chat rooms are at. If you want to join in, just go to Paranormal Soup on YouTube or Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup on Facebook and join the chat room. But let's go ahead and get back to our guests. Thanks for hanging in there with me, Susan.
Glad to be here.
Now, one of the things that we talk about the fourth dimension is if we move into the fourth dimension, are we going to physically be different? Are we going to communicate with just telepathy? I mean, what would be living in the fourth dimension be like?
I think we'll look pretty much as we look now. Although we may hold more light and we may be vibrating at a slightly higher frequency. And I think some of us already are communicating telepathically. I think people have experiences of that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And they may or not realize it, but I think that's already happening. You probably can think of times when it's happened for you.
Oh, well, lots of times, and a continuous thing for me.
Yeah. So
I'm one of those people that I have trouble in a fight. I have trouble with negativity from somebody towards me. It makes me physically ill.
Yeah. Because you're vibrating in a way that just doesn't, it doesn't jive with your vibration. You really feel it as a lower vibration.
Well, yeah, I
And
can
it
tell.
can make you
When somebody's,
sick.
yeah, exactly. When somebody's really angry or throwing negativity my way, it makes me sick in my stomach. Ever since I can remember as a kid.
Yeah, because that's a wrong use of our energy. That we're really meant to come from love. And anger is so destructive to to ourselves, to our vibration. We really need, love itself is a vibration. That is the force. And anger, hatred, jealousy, all of those emotions, they lower your vibration. And if you get around that, you can feel physically ill. And when you're when you're channeling the force, which is love, you feel wonderful. It's the source of all creation, love.
But on the opposite side of that, there's people that obviously channel the dark side and they find power in that.
That's right. And they get their power from controlling other people. The way to progress on the path of light is service to other beings. The way to progress on the path of the dark side is enslaving others, controlling others. The more beings you control, the more power you have on the dark side. Kind of the Machiavellian
train of thought.
Exactly. Everything is for me. Everything is for me and mine. Never mind about anyone else. I'm taking what I want. I'm enslaving anybody that gets in my way or killing them. And on the path of light, you're in service to all beings. It's two different journeys. And people can progress quite far on the dark side.
That's why I wasn't so thrilled about the new trilogy of Star Wars. We're going to get into Star Wars again. Try not to spoil it.
Yeah.
But I have like a plethora of Star Wars books. I read all the books that they wrote afterwards that Disney threw out and said wasn't canon. And in those, Han Solo and Leia have a son named Jason Solo. I didn't like him just because his name was Jason. Okay. But you through all those books, you follow him from his childhood to his death in this whole series of books. And spoilers, but I doubt anybody's going to read like 40 books. But there was an article I read recently that compared the two characters, Jason Solo and Ben Solo. Okay. And what I saw all the comments, everybody was big geeky nerd Star Wars fans. Like everybody liked the Jason Solo because one, it was fleshed out, but one is his journey to the dark side because he goes dark side too. They very much Disney stole from this character and made Kylo Ren. He's very much Jason Solo, but Kylo Ren's just angry about his parents and his upbringing and all that stuff, whatever. You don't really get to see his journey to the dark side, but in these books, you see his journey to the dark side is really, really relatable because it's one little step at a time. It's not like one giant decision he makes and he turns to the dark side. It's one little step. It convinces you what he's doing is the right thing. You think he's doing is the right thing.
He's rationalizing it.
The authors that wrote these books were really good. They make you understand the rationality, of it. You sympathize with him. You understand his rationality. You don't realize you're being led down the dark side even in the books. It was beautiful. He was one of the best characters they wrote for the expanded universe for Star Wars. I know I'm geeking out. Sorry,
and then he wasn't even used.
Right. And his journey to the Jason. Yeah. But his journey to the dark side was like what I loved about it was his one little step at a time. You don't even realize that's what's happening when you're reading these books. That's where they were taking this character. And that's what I thought was the beauty of it.
Corrupting him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Corrupting him in baby steps.
Yeah. And that's what I feel like you see us moving to the fourth dimension, but I see us in baby steps being corrupted to go to the dark side as a civilization.
Some of us are doing that, and other people are holding the light and calling to the light. There are people in service to others all over this planet. You are one of them. And there are people just in service to themselves.
But those people that are in service to themselves are eventually going to collide with the people that are trying to help everybody else. There's going to be a battle of light versus dark is what I'm saying before we get into this fourth dimension.
Yes, the battle is on right now. I mean, they're not battling with lightsabers, but they're battling with energy.
It'd be really cool if they were, but
yeah, they're battling with energy. Well, in my books, they are battling with lightsabers, but they're not having a saber. The energy, the light just comes right out of their fingers because it's the Force.
Well,
and I have battles between the Dark Lords of Orion and the Wanderers in different places on Earth.
Do you think there are people here that can really exhibit those kind of powers?
I do, and I think they're waking up. I think they're waking up because the Wanderers don't know they're Wanderers when they're born because the laws around Earth say that everyone has to go through the veil of forgetting. That's why we don't remember the future or the past lives we've had, because we all pass through the veil of forgetting when we come into the third dimension on Earth. But people are waking up. Yes, there are people on the dark path, but there are people on the light path. And the force of love is the strongest force. And it will win. It will win on Earth. Earth will go to the light.
It just scares me, the future, because like I said, I see where we're heading. And I know. Especially when technology is involved, especially with technology. Just like we have my news segment, World Wide Web of Weird. And again, this segment we had tonight, I say we don't learn from our sci-fi movies. Like I said, authors, I think, channel things that are lessons for us.
What can happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But we seem to no, that's not a blueprint for what scientists should do, because it's like they go out and try to do it.
We should watch out for.
Right. But then they go out. It's like they don't, I mean, again, China, they named their AI system that monitors everybody. They named it Skynet.
Good grief.
From Terminator. I don't know if you've seen Terminator, but they named it Skynet.
Yes.
And it's like, wow, we've really learned nothing.
That is quintessential dark side. Controlling other people, controlling their minds, controlling how quickly they take out their garbage. Control is the path of the dark side.
Maybe that's
controlling and enslaving.
I've always said one of my biggest pet peeves in life, from my earliest thoughts of being who I am, the thing I've always rebelled against is people trying to control other people.
Because it's the path of the dark side. That's why you rebelled against it.
I mean, it could
the light
be
side is free will.
it could be somebody I don't know, have any feelings for, but they tell me, you know, I hear their story, you know, or how somebody's trying to control them, like a partner who, like a husband or a wife that just wholly controls everything they do, and they have a, you know, threaten them and violence, or they can't leave. That just, oh, I get angry. Like I cannot stand it when people try to own other people or try to control other people.
Because you know at the deepest level that is the dark side at work.
I also related back
That
to
is how they operate.
one of my past life vivid dreams I had was of being like an 8-year-old black girl who was a slave, who was beaten by her father / master, white father, you know, slave master. That's what was so vivid. I'm being beat with a stick to death in this dream is what happened to me. And I woke up knowing, like, there's one of 2 dreams I've had that I woke up just knowing that was so emotional, vivid, and real to me that had to have been a past life memory. And it explains so much about me, because like I cannot, the idea of slavery, the idea of controlling people it makes me angry. Maybe anger is the dark side too, but I can't, you know, that anger will never go away. I cannot stand the idea of people trying to control other people.
I'm so with you on that. I am just 200% with you on that. Oh my God, that was a hard life. That was a hard life. But it purifies. I mean, look at your, you know exactly the path of the light is to be of service to others and not to control them.
But I feel like that's what some of the growing pains. I don't know if you see it, but I feel like there's the control of minds is happening right now. Like there's this push from both different sides, and you know, of the political aisles or the philosophical aisles, all trying to vie for control of our minds, our thoughts, our freedom of speech.
Such a split too, like such a split like never before in this country.
Right.
And
like,
you know, it's terrible.
It makes us feel like, I mean, it really does feel like we are transitioning. Something's happening. Truths are being revealed. You know, like we're finding out the worst of the worst too about people. You know, I don't know. It feels like we are going through some kind of transition. Now, do you have any time frame or idea, like where, you know, like what would be your idea when we'd be transitioning into the fourth dimension? When does it all fall down?
We're transitioning now, right now, and we'll be fully in the fourth dimension within 200 years.
But is it going to take a World War III? Like, is there going to be like a huge catastrophe? I mean, like, you know, or how does it work? I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's the question. Like, you know, how do we get there? You know, and you talk about my other fandom is Star Trek. And
I love Star Trek.
Right, and they live in a society. I love Picard. You know, I think it was First Contact, the movie. I know we're geeking out. People are like, God, these nerds. But the First Contact movie, I think he picks up a woman from the, you know, she's just at the end of the World War III. You know, she's somebody in a society's like just trying to get itself back together. And she's like, you live with no money. It's like, well, we pursue other things. You know, we don't pursue the aspect of material goods or money. People are like, socialist. you know, Star Trek social. No, you know what it is Star Trek got the free energy. They got replicators. They got things to make it possible for us to live. So there is an aspect of technology that could be good. If we could get free energy, you know, take away my NIPSCO bill. You know, it might make life a little bit easier. I mean, if we had availability to provide free energy and free food without much cost, you know.
And we do. Just so much has been suppressed, but we will get there. We will get there. Because if these big corporations would stop suppressing things, if things were equitably distributed, there's more than enough food on this planet for everybody. There doesn't have to be starvation. There's more than enough energy for everybody.
If they would release the technology. Right.
Yeah, and we will get there.
Now,
it will get revealed. Everything is going to hatch out. I mean, I don't necessarily think we're going to have World War III, but I think
Star Trek
some of
did.
our government.
Star Trek thought we would have to have World War III before we kind of could reach that utopian society.
But I think what will happen, and maybe this would be considered a catastrophe, but I think a lot of our governments will fall as we know them. All these secrets that governments are holding will hatch out in many countries. And when the governments fall, then a lot of the old guard will be gone and new blood will come in. And it will make way for the fourth dimension.
Susan, I've said that for a long time. I got involved in politics in my early 20s. I got involved in the Libertarian Party, and eventually I just got sick of it all. I got sick of politics, and I came down to the conclusion that nothing's going to change within our government until it all falls apart.
Until
completely
it falls,
falls apart.
But I think it may fall. I think Congress, as we know it, may fall. I think the whole thing will fall because it's so corrupt now that it'll hopefully it will fall, and not only in our country. I mean,
well, yeah, you see it everywhere. I mean, there's riots in France.
Yeah.
England's going through their own turmoil.
Russia.
Putin
is power grabbing.
Oh my God, he's really power grabbing right now. I don't know if you heard the latest news. I mean, he's basically
he fired everybody.
Everybody. Yeah. Yeah. He's becoming. It's like, I'm waiting for him to come out in a floating palace and wearing a red robe like Palpatine. Like yeah.
He's a dictator.
Oh God.
But then you see things like, I don't know what you think of Harry and Meghan, but they're not going to be your Royal Highness anymore. Why should anybody be your Royal Highness? And we're all equal. Nobody's your freaking Royal Highness.
Right, exactly. Oh yeah, monarchs. I mean, that's the primitive human idea that we have to have somebody royally divine in charge of us.
Because we're infantile. Forget it. That's gonna crash. I mean, the sooner that monarchy crashes, the better.
I think they jumped off the boat before it sank.
Yeah, they did those too.
After some secrets have been revealed about some of their royal family members.
Yeah,
like Prince Andrew.
Exactly.
We're good. We don't need the Royal Highness title. Yeah. Things are going kind of south for you guys.
And nobody should be bowed to and be a highness.
Well, according to people like David Icke, they're reptilians. So, eating children. I don't know if that's true, but
Yeah.
Well,
the reptilians are here. The reptilians, there's still reptilians here. There are a lot of in the banking world, and in Wall Street.
Well, the banking world, I mean, think about the Windsors and how much property and everything they own. I mean, I could buy that they're reptilians, and it's you mentioned a way, about your daughter, the bloodline. That some of these alien entities to inhabit us, to break that quarantine, need a certain bloodline to do it.
Yeah.
They talk about generational demonic possessions that possess family lines,
exactly.
Alien abductees. They talk about them following bloodlines.
Oh.
So bloodlines definitely have something to do with it. And, so you do believe there's like reptilian aliens here?
I do. And I have some reptilians in Mission from Venus.
Really? Read this.
Yeah.
Definitely want to read this book because I think it resonates with me like that other book did.
You might enjoy it.
Yeah,
you might enjoy it. The first book 1, Mission from Venus, there's a lot of information in that book, and then there's a lot of spiritual stuff, and it's a setup for book 2, which is The Wanderers on Earth, which is at the publishers now, getting in production.
When is that? Do you have a release date yet for it? Probably not.
I think it'll. They haven't told me yet, but probably like fall 2020 this year, because Mission from Venus just came out the 1st of November. And so they told me people don't want to wait a long time. So hurry up and finish it.
No, we don't. Not with serial trilogy novels. Yeah. Don't make us wait forever. What's his name? From Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Kill me.
That was a great show.
Great show, but the books were better, and then he just dropped off and stopped writing. And plus, he had so many years in between the books.
Oh yeah, he just stopped
Martin.
writing.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's why I almost hated the show, because here we are geeking out.
Well, he was maybe he got depressed, or his
show
channel
ruined it.
just blocked. Yeah, the last one was a freaking bummer.
Yeah, and
I
he didn't
didn't
write
like
it.
the way they ended
No,
that.
and that
I
was,
know.
But I read all the books, and like he never finished it. He never finished it because of the show, so it drove
No,
me
he
nuts.
didn't.
You wonder if that guy was channeling something. You
He
know,
probably was, and maybe his channel got stopped up or something.
HBO stuff.
It's like, you asked me about, will there be a third world war on Earth? And this third book in this trilogy is called The Battle for Earth. And they haven't given it to me yet. I'm still working on the first chapter, which is actually set in Saturn's rings with the Council of Nine. But I can't write it until I get it. So I don't know.
You just brought back something. I'm totally, what's it? Trying to remember the name of the guest I had who was a contactee. And he talked about aliens on Jupiter, but he also, I think when he ended up on a ship, he was in the rings of Saturn. So all that really rings a bell. He's going to probably send me a message.
Apparently there's some kind of command center in the rings of Saturn.
See, a lot of the stuff you talked about tonight relates back to other guests I've had and other books I had. Like all of it seems so
I think we
along
all
the same
pick
path.
up.
Yeah.
We pick up the same information, or we're given the same information. And we bring it through our brains in whatever way we can, which may make little variations.
I kind of want to get back to this one a little bit before we run out of time too. The reptilian thing. I wish I could have gotten into that sooner. Where are they from?
I think they're from a place called Edaman, a different constellation. I got something about it just like in the last few days, but I'm on Skype now, so I can't open my computer and find that, what I wrote about that, because I named 2 reptilians. I made up names for them because I couldn't get the names. But the thing came through where the reptilians were from. But I'll email you.
Well, one of the things I've always, definitely let me know, because one of the things I've always said about reptilians that is, everybody talks about.
I think they're from Draco.
I've heard Draco. For them. But one of the things is I've always said too is if you believe in the idea of a multiverse and multiple timelines, I don't know if you do, but is, if the dinosaurs hadn't gone extinct, they might be a version of life that would have evolved here on this planet.
They would have been. They surely would have
been. Because there was a bipedal,
right?
There was a bipedal dinosaur that had opposable thumbs.
And it was it an accident that meteor hit?
Right, like
Who
they might have
knows?
been like, oh, this
Or
they grew up to
maybe
be.
it was sent.
Maybe they grew up to be, if we didn't exist and this planet went on with the reptilians, they would have been a horrible force in the universe, and they just wiped them out, made sure they didn't exist in this timeline.
Possibly.
And that's
but
why they're
then they
obsessed with
exist
us.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they feel we stole their planet.
Right.
Or it was taken from them or something.
It's things that I've just inwardly felt. I don't know, because I used to want to
Yeah.
write fiction, and maybe I'm channeling something, but that's one thing I've always thought about when it comes to when they talk about the reptilians, the draconians, and
Well, maybe you should write it. You should, if you don't have time between kids and
right,
marriage
exactly. I
and
used to
your
write.
show.
I used to write, and then
You'll
life
get
happened.
back to it.
I
You'll
hope
get
so.
back to it.
I hope so, because I have a lot of
when
these
you get
ideas, and I
older.
wonder sometimes if I'm channeling this information. Because, like I said, when I read that one book, and when I find it, I will email you and let you know.
Yeah.
My wife
You
is like looking for
probably
it
are
now.
channeling. You
That-
probably are channeling.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that when I read that book, I'm like, all this, like, I should just be like, oh, malarkey, and be done with it. But all of the stuff in this book, I'm like, wow, this, I don't know, something inwardly, my imagination went with it. I like really
It resonated.
Right, exactly. It resonated. And I always tell people, trust your gut on stuff. That if this is something from my, I've known about it through my past lives or whatever. That's why it resonated, maybe.
Yep. Well,
What's going to be the name? What was the name of your second book coming out in fall?
the second book is called The Wanderers on Earth. They've left Venus, where they've been training in the first book, and they've incarnated in human families. There's a family in New York, a family in Moscow, a family in Tehran, a family in Cairo, a family in Dublin. I've got them all over the world. One in Mumbai.
Feel sorry for the one in Iran.
Yeah, and they're growing up. They're growing up. I tried to get different cultures, and they're growing up, and they're knowing stuff is different about them. And the book opens when they're 21, and because they're all incarnated on the same day. At the end of the first book, they go down. I describe their transition from higher dimension into Earth.
Sad thought is that if we do have some wanderer that's incarnated in Iran right now,
hopefully they're
waking
leading
up
the revolution against the government.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That'd be a horrible place to wake up to.
There are people there, fighting the government and demonstrating, getting their heads banged in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
I think we're going to see more of that.
Well, because there's a very bad guy, the guy that was assassinated, Soleimani, that general, his brother runs all the prisons in Iran.
Yeah. Well, Soleimani helped put a lot of those people into prisons during the protests
and
or
he
killed
tortured.
them.
Yeah. They tortured those people and killed them. Those two brothers were evil. I mean, talk about the dark side.
Well, that again, a government that controls people. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Every religion controls people.
Yeah, that's why I've always never joined a religion. I don't know about you, but I don't like that idea.
Me neither. Me neither. It's wonderful to be spiritual and believe in a higher power, but you can't give yourself over to regimented beliefs that are calcified and controlling and judgmental. Any judgmental thing is the dark side.
Yeah, because how people that I always say, you judge somebody, whatever, but put yourself in their shoes and live their experience.
Exactly.
We all have our different experiences. We're all in this together. So you can judge all you want. It ain't going to change a dang thing.
Right. That's the path of the light. We are all in this together. And you know what? Even the people on the dark path eventually will come to the light after the sixth dimension. Eventually they will come to the light. Everyone gets there. Everyone gets back to source.
Oh.
Some people take the dark route. Some people take the light path.
Just might take them 75,000 more years.
It will. Yeah, it might take them 75,000 more years. It's just like Ben. Kylo Ren got back to Ben. It's just like Darth Vader.
Right.
They went to the dark. They came back. That's like an encapsulated thing of a journey.
Right.
The way those characters
journey.
were written. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Susan, for being on the show. When your book comes out next fall, I'd love to have you back on again. Talk about it.
Great. It was so wonderful to talk to you. So good night, and write when you get a little older.
Yeah.
And you have more time and the kids are grown up.
They don't even let me read anymore. Yeah, I do. One day I will get back to writing. Well, thank you, Susan. Like I said, love to have you back on the show. But that's it, guys. That's the end of the show.
Good night.
Good night. You have a great night, Susan. Next week, we will have psychic Chris Garcia on. First time on a show, and I know he's anxious to be on. Whoa, that's her unplugging her headphones. I know he's anxious to be on, so we'll have him on. I think he's going to do readings, I'm pretty sure, so be ready to call in and see what Chris can help you with. And don't forget to subscribe and follow us on YouTube and Facebook, and sharing the show. Thanks to everyone who shares out this show. It means a lot. That's how we got to let people know about Paranormal Soup. You know anybody who's interested in the paranormal, ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, anything, send them our way. Send them to the Paranormal Soup. And then if you want to help us out, $2 a month on Patreon does help pay the bills for the show. So please go check it out if you can. If not, just sharing the show is the biggest help of all. Thanks, everyone. See you next Sunday.